American comic, I'm lost, I'm surrounded by superheroes with father issues. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 Nano to the rescue, boy. There was a sudden terrorist attack at Gotham Union Station. The terrorists released a biochemical virus. Many Gotham citizens were infected at the scene. The police have blocked the station. In the news program, the host was reporting the terrorist attack in Gotham. Dark red gas spread out from the station and filled the sky. Oh my god. We have to go. The host who was reporting on the scene saw the red gas attacking him and immediately fled the scene as fast as possible. At the same time, bursts of gunfire rang out in the Union Station. The crowd infected by the virus attacked the police frantically. The police who were caught off guard wanted to draw their guns to fight back, but they were knocked down by the crowd the next second. As the poisonous gas spread, the number of people affected gradually increased. The streets became a place of riots and panic. Cars and surrounding shops and banks soon became the targets of the crazy crowd. Chaos and panic gradually spread throughout the city. Bruce looked at the shocking pictures on the screen, and his heart was suddenly in a mess. No. Bruce immediately turned around in panic and ran to Peter's room. Pushing the door open, Bruce shouted to Peter, "Sir, Gotham." Peter put down his phone and looked at the panicked Bruce. "Sir, Gotham has been attacked." "I know, Bruce." Peter turned to face him calmly. "They released a biological virus to start their ambitious plan, sir." "Is it the Court of Owls?" "It's likely." Peter stood up, stood in front of the window, and looked out at the city across the river. Martian Manhunter just told himself that the Court of Owls was developing a serum virus. Now that the virus was immediately released, it was hard not to think that it was the work of the Court of Owls. "Alfred, and Selina, I have to go back to Gotham." Bruce was in a hurry to go back to Gotham. "Wait, Bruce, do you know what they want to do?" Peter stopped the panicked Bruce. "No, I don't know. They want to take away the hope of Gotham people." "Bruce, you can't give them hope." Peter looked into his eyes. "You can't change anything now, so, for your safety, I suggest you stay in Metropolis." Bruce said firmly. "No, sir, I have to go back, even if you will be killed by mad people at any time, or caught by the Court of Owls." "Yes, sir, you said that terror can also breed power. I may not be able to give Gotham people hope, but I can give fear to those bastards." Bruce took a deep breath and bowed deeply to Peter. "Sir, thank you for taking care of me during this time. I have learned a lot from you," Bruce said sincerely. "You taught me to face my fears and how to face life. These are things I have never felt before." "Thank you, sir." He untied his watch and handed it to Peter. "Sir, I don't know what I will encounter, so, can you keep this watch for me?" Peter looked at his father's watch in Bruce's hand and was stunned. Then he shook his head and said to Bruce, "I don't need it, Bruce, just keep it for yourself." He knew Bruce was going to give him the watch, but there was no way he could accept such a precious thing. What if there was a cause and effect? Wouldn't he be responsible for Bruce Wayne? Zoo was already a headache for him, and with a bitter and vengeful Batman, if the meteor shower brought a few more worry-free babies, he was afraid that he would live a few years less. After Bruce left, the Martian hunter knocked on the door and came in. "You really let him go?" "Of course, I'm not a savior," Peter said as if it was a matter of course. "Do you think I'm the kind of selfless hero?" "You may not be, but Bruce respects you very much," Martian Manhunter said to him. "As people say, anyone can be a father, but only a middle-aged man who works hard can become a daddy. He seems to think of you as a daddy." "First, I'm not a middle-aged man." Peter looked at the chaotic scene of Gotham on TV, shook his head and said to Martian Manhunter, "I'm a young man who hasn't married yet. Second, I'm not interested in being a daddy." "Oh, Peter, what you said just now is obviously not sincere. Did you read my mind?" "So sure." Peter looked at the cunning green man speechlessly. "No, I never easily peek into other people's hearts. I just read the inconsistency on your face. At night, Gotham." Bruce stood on the street, tightening his collar to cover his face. The chaos in the city continued. Due to the lack of police force in Gotham, the entire city could not be fully controlled, resulting in the chaos. There were bursts of exclamations and scolding from the corner of the street in the distance. Bruce quickly moved to a telephone booth. Looking around and confirming that no one was paying attention, he quickly dialed the number of Wayne Manor. After dialing for a few minutes, no one answered. Reluctantly hanging up the phone, he prepared to go to Wayne Manor to see it in person. Just after walking out of the phone booth, he encountered a group of thugs chasing a man. "Hey, what are you doing?" Seeing the man being beaten to the ground and wailing, Bruce immediately spoke out to stop him. "Get out, brat." After several thugs scolded Bruce, they continued to punch and kick the man. Bruce gritted his teeth, grabbed a stick on the ground and rushed towards the thugs. Bang! The sudden attack made him knock down a thug in an instant. The remaining thugs saw their accomplices fall, stunned for a moment, and immediately rushed towards him. A few minutes later, Bruce, who was outnumbered, ran breathlessly to the rooftop of a building under repair. He jumped to the edge of the rooftop with a bang, looked at the sky below his feet, and then looked at the roof opposite. The footsteps of the thugs chasing him came from behind. Looking at the sky under his feet, fear instantly grew in his heart. "No, I can do it. Overcome fear. I can do it. Forget those fears. You will gain strength." While encouraging himself, taking a deep breath, Bruce took a few steps back, and then accelerated forward. The moment he took a step, the whole person soared into the air like a bird and jumped to the roof opposite. Bang! Finally, he successfully jumped over and stepped on the edge of the roof opposite. However, before he could breathe a sigh of relief, his body suddenly lost balance and fell backwards uncontrollably. No, he lost his balance and fell straight down. Bruce, whose heart was filled with despair, felt a feeling of falling and looked at the sky above his head. The feeling of falling into the Batcave in his childhood hit him again. Helplessly, he stretched out his hand and vaguely saw the bat in the cave. Hoolah! The bat in the black night sky kept getting bigger in front of him until it turned into Peter's face. Peter accelerated and grabbed the falling Bruce, pulled him into his arms, and fell rapidly downward. Bang! Peter turned over and fell heavily to the ground holding Bruce. Thanks to Yidian 2.5 Jin, Zio 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 Bei 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 KKK, and Liang Chang Meng Jin for the reward. Thank you. Thank you for your voting support. Recommended book, the fantasy spiritual flow novel Spiritual Key Revival. All the kung fu I compiled have been practiced, a very creative novel. Interested gentlemen can take a look. Chapter 77, Solving Gotham's Problems in One Night. Mr. Patrick, Bruce, who was held by Peter and landed on the ground, looked at Peter who suddenly appeared in shock. Good jump, Bruce, but the last one was a bit unlucky. Peter let go of Bruce, but it's not bad. Taking the first step against fear, Bruce's heart was beating wildly, and surviving a disaster made his head feel unreal and dizzy. Sir, why did you come here? He asked in disbelief. If you have an accident, Bruce, I'm afraid I can't cash my $20,000 in the bar. Peter rubbed Bruce's hair. Don't forget, our deal is not over yet. Bruce knew that Peter was joking with him. He touched his sore nose and thanked Peter. Thank you, sir. Our deal will always count, no matter what happens. I believe in your promise. Let's go. It's not safe here, Peter said as he took Bruce away from the scene quickly. Sir, what are we going to do next? Will you go back to Metropolis? Bruce asked with both expectation and fear. If I insist on going back to Metropolis, you will definitely stay in Gotham, right? Peter took Bruce to a high-powered Harley motorcycle, and without waiting for Bruce to answer, he continued, I will be back in Metropolis before dawn. The time now is, he looked at his watch, 10:02 p.m., which means we have less than 8 hours, but one night is enough. 8 hours for what, sir? Peter turned around and stared at Bruce. Find the Court of Owls. This is impossible, sir. The Court of Owls has been lurking in Gotham for centuries. We can't find them, Bruce stammered. There will always be clues, Bruce. Peter handed Bruce the motorcycle helmet, and they have already appeared since today. Bruce put on the helmet, sat in the back seat, and hugged Peter's waist. With a roar, the motorcycle immediately ran wildly on the streets of Gotham. While driving his motorcycle, Peter called Martian Manhunter. Jones, have you found James Gordon's phone number? According to his previous life's understanding of Gotham, the only person who could help now might be this upright policeman. Although Gordon now might not be the experienced old detective in the future. After receiving the call from Martian Manhunter, he immediately dialed the phone. At the Gotham Police Department, Police Officer James Gordon was getting anxious because of the chaos in Gotham, and his cell phone suddenly rang. I'm James Gordon. Who is this? Officer Gordon, I want to talk to you about a Court of Owls. Hearing the word Court of Owls coming from the microphone, Gordon's heart stopped. Who are you? Why do you know this organization? It doesn't matter who I am, but if you want to talk, you can go to the rooftop of the Gotham Police Department, and I'll be waiting for you there." After Gordon hung up the phone, the expression on his face kept changing. After hesitating for a moment, he finally gritted his teeth and rushed to the rooftop. On the rooftop, Gordon looked around the surrounding environment. The dark night was quiet, and it seemed that no one was waiting for him here. Officer Gordon, hearing the strange voice, Gordon was startled and turned around. What he saw was a shadow bathed in shadow. The night obstructed his view of the other person's face, and a sense of mystery lingered on him. "Who are you?" Faced with the elusive existence, Gordon's vigilance was raised to the maximum. "That's not important, Officer Gordon. I think you must have found out about the Court of Owls, right?" Gordon took a step back. "How do you know?" "Who are you?" Peter stared at the handsome middle-aged man in front of him, and he couldn't match him with the old Gordon he knew in his previous life. He shook his head, dispelling the sense of disobedience. "Don't worry, I'm not a thug. I'm someone who is trying to give this city some hope. The Court of Owls controls a laboratory in Indian Hills to study serum viruses. Officer Gordon, you sent someone to investigate there. I believe you will find something valuable." Peter paused and continued, "Now, let's exchange information. I think you will tell me the clues you have." "Right, officer." Gordon looked at Peter in the shadows hesitantly, and finally chose to believe him. "I haven't found out the location of this organization yet, but I found out that the former mayor of Gotham, Wally Crone, has a close relationship with this organization. He must know the secrets of this organization." "Former mayor?" Peter nodded with satisfaction after hearing this answer. Bang! The sound of gunfire near the police station startled Gordon. He turned and looked in the direction of the gunfire, and when he turned to face Peter again, he found that the other person's figure had disappeared. In the distance, Bruce, who was observing the scene on the rooftop, saw Peter's method of coming and going without a trace, and his eyes lit up. "I will try this way of meeting Officer Gordon in the future." An hour later, Peter grabbed the collar of the bloated former mayor with one hand and pushed him to the edge of the rooftop. "My time is precious, so Mr. Mayor, we don't have to beat around the bush. Tell me, where's the headquarters of the Court of Owls?" Wally Crone looked at Peter standing in front of him in horror. "I don't know what you are talking about. He was originally resting at home, and in the blink of an eye he was kidnapped to the rooftop by this demon. It seems that you don't know who you have provoked." Peter pushed Wally Crone back fiercely. The former mayor, whose body was out of control, immediately felt a sense of weightlessness. He let out a shrill cry as he fell downstairs. At the moment of falling, his tie was grabbed by Peter. Wally Crone, whose body was leaning back and half of his body protruding from the rooftop, did not breathe a sigh of relief because of being rescued, but let out a more miserable cry. "No. No. Sir, don't let go. Please." Peter grabbed the other's tie, shook his head and said, "I'm not sure if your tie can hold up. Now, tell me everything you know about the Court of Owls." I'll tell you. The frightened Wally Crone immediately begged Peter for mercy. However, before he could tell him about the Court of Owls, a whoosh sound suddenly sounded. Wally Crone's head was pierced by the dart, and blood spurted out. Bruce next to him was shocked by Peter's interrogation method. He didn't expect that Wally Crone would be killed. The sudden change made him stunned. Chapter 78. The smoke is quite strong. Peter pulled up Wally Crone's body by his tie. Bruce walked over quickly and looked at Peter in shock. "Sir, he's dead." "Yeah, as expected. Doesn't the Court of Owls monitor Gotham at all times?" Peter looked at the killer who had escaped. "But my original target was not our former mayor." Peter narrowed his eyes, and his super senses captured a trace of the escaped killer. "Let's go. We have to rely on this killer to lead the way for us." After being stunned for a moment, Bruce quickly caught up with Peter, staring at his back. "Sir, did you intend to lure the killer of the Court of Owls from the beginning?" Bruce asked in disbelief. Peter stopped and said to Bruce, "Yes, I don't believe that the former mayor can tell me what I want to know. So, sir, you also know that they will attack the former mayor?" "I don't know, Bruce, but I guess they will do so." He looked at the silent Bruce. "Do you think my behavior is rude?" "No, Bruce, this city, darkness and evil permeate every corner. The police are corrupt and incompetent. The law is like a decoration, and the tragedy your parents have experienced may happen every day. If you try to save this city, giving them hope is not enough." Peter said something that shocked Bruce. He put his hand on Bruce's shoulder. "Only fear can make them stop and make them afraid." Bruce's heart was in turmoil. He stared at Peter, His lips slightly opened, not knowing what he should say. "Sir, maybe law and order can also save the city." After a while, Bruce spoke his inner thoughts. "It's good to have hope, Bruce. You walk in the dark zone, but you still believe in order and law. You long for revenge and kill criminals, but you can still use cold reason to overwhelm the hot anger. This is what I hope you can do." Facing the confused Bruce, Peter transmitted some positive energy ideas to him. If this kid goes astray and becomes a blackened Batman who does everything he can, he estimates that he will really become a father's worry in the future. "I understand, sir," Bruce nodded and said to him firmly, "I will also become the kind of person you expect, the headquarters of the Court of Owls." At this time, the members of the Owls gathered in the court. These famous families in Gotham were discussing everything that happened today. "Quiet. Quiet," the elegant woman wearing an owl mask stopped everyone's discussion. "Everyone, Gotham is in tatters and has no cure. Only we can rebuild Gotham and let it rise from the ashes. Now our plan is about to succeed, and the rise of the new Gotham is just around the corner." As soon as the voice fell, cheers resounded throughout the headquarters of the Court of Owls. "I don't think so," an abrupt voice suddenly interrupted the cheers of the crowd. The masked people looked in the direction of the voice. What they saw was Peter and Bruce walking slowly. The woman looked at Bruce in surprise. "It's you, Bruce Wayne. How did you find this place?" She cast her eyes on Peter, her face full of disbelief. "That's a long story. You rats are really hiding deep." Peter took a step forward and looked around at the masked nobles who were said to control the entire Gotham. You killed my parents." Bruce glared at everyone in the Court of Owls. The woman shook her head and said to Bruce, "You are as stubborn and unwilling to compromise as your father. Bruce, if you had not escaped from our control at the beginning, we would not have taken action against you, just like your father always wanted to get rid of us after discovering our existence. You always overestimate your own value, whether it is to yourself or others, but now, since you have fallen into the trap, I think the result will not be much different from before." She clapped her hands, and several killers wearing owl uniforms flashed in the shadows. The killers were agile and fast, drew their samurai swords behind them, and rushed towards Peter and Bruce. Peter protected Bruce behind him, grabbed the arm of a killer who rushed up, and twisted it with his backhand. The latter let out a miserable cry. With a bang, Peter punched him and sent him flying. His body hit another killer, and the two were hit against the wall by the terrifying force. Without waiting for the reaction of the people present, Peter rushed to a killer at a speed invisible to the naked eye, and smashed his elbow horizontally. The latter directly spun in the air like a gyroscope for several times and fell to the ground hard. The warm blood quickly smeared the cold ground. These killers, who were agile and sharp in the eyes of ordinary people, were easily solved by Peter. Everyone in the court was completely dumbfounded when they saw the killers falling to the ground in a breath. They looked at Peter with horror, and the crowd immediately fled in panic. While the woman was fleeing, she ordered the remaining killers at the scene to spray virus gas spray at Peter. Gulu, the ball spewing red smoke rolled to Peter's feet. Then, in the stunned eyes of everyone, Peter bent down to pick up the ball spewing poisonous gas on the ground, put it between his nose, and took a deep breath. "Well, it tastes good. I haven't smoked for many years. This has aroused my little addiction." Peter took a few more puffs with an expression of enjoyment, without any sign of poisoning. The woman looked at Peter's enjoyment in horror and was shocked and couldn't say anything. Where did this monster come from? Seeing Peter's terrifying performance, the believers of the Court of Owls became even more confused and fled madly. With a whoosh, Peter moved directly in front of the old woman, grabbed her throat and threw her out. The round table in the middle of the meeting was instantly smashed to pieces by her body, and wood chips flew into the air. The remaining court members, who were scrambling to escape, suddenly stopped. As if the court members were acupunctured, blood flowed from the corners of their mouths and their bodies twitched. Plop, plop, the sounds rang out one after another, and soon all the members of the Court of Owls fell to the ground, motionless. Peter was originally planning to deal with these court members, but the sudden situation made him frown. Bruce was also shocked by the scene, and it took him a while to react. Walking up to Peter, he asked him in disbelief, "Sir, what happened?" Peter bent down and checked the body of a member of the Court of Owls. "They're all dead, all poisoned to death, all silenced. Obviously, they were poisoned before we came in." Peter stood up and stared at the owl statue in the center of the court. "It seems that the so-called Court of Owls is just the tip of the iceberg of Gotham. Is it over?" Looking at the corpses all over the ground, Bruce knew that the matter had ended here. The Court of Owls was destroyed by the real mastermind behind the scenes. The longest night was about to end, but he felt an indescribable melancholy in his heart. I will post the 2 chapters this afternoon and evening together, and by the way, I would like to ask for monthly tickets from everyone. Thank you for your support, readers. Bo. Chapter 79, Going to College? Azu, what the hell? Wayne Manor. Bruce stood at the door, hesitant and not daring to enter. He took a last look at Peter, who was standing behind him and looking at him with encouraging eyes, and then uneasily pressed the doorbell. After the doorbell rang, Alfred opened the door and walked out of the room. After seeing Bruce standing outside the door, their eyes met. Alfred, with a flash of surprise in his eyes, walked forward quickly. Bruce looked at Alfred a little at a loss. He knew that there might be another Bruce in the manor now, and he was not sure whether the butler could recognize him. Before Bruce could finish his thoughts, Alfred excitedly held his hand. Great, Master Bruce, you are finally back. Bruce stared at his butler in a daze, and stammered, Alfred, do you know about the fake Bruce? Yes, I know. Although he pretends to be very similar to you, he will eventually be exposed. The previous call from Metropolis was from you, right, Master Bruce? Yes. Bruce held the butler's hand, feeling the long-lost familiar breath, and a complex emotion surged in his heart. After a while, he raised his head and asked the other party, where's the fake Bruce now? Alfred, he has run away, Alfred said with some regret. After saying a few words about the fake Bruce, he asked Bruce about his experience these days. Mr. Padrick sent me. Bruce pointed his finger at the original Peter, but found that the other party had disappeared. The place where Peter was originally standing was empty. The thin and fragile pine needles whispered in the wind, and the dark shadows of the trees swayed, as if Peter would come out of the shadows to greet them in the next second. But Bruce knew that Peter might never come out of the shadows. He took a deep breath and said to Alfred, I have been in Metropolis these days. I know a gentleman who has been taking care of me. Alfred asked curiously, who? Mr. Peter Padrick. Bruce suddenly asked the butler with a relaxed expression, Alfred, I remember a set of uniforms, a winter suit that I customized on a Christmas day. It was made of space materials and there was a small golden badge on the chest. Maybe it can be changed and the small golden badge can be changed to a bat logo. Alfred looked at him in confusion. The uniform is still there, Master. What do you want to do with it? I want to be like Mr. Padrick and incarnate the fear in the night. Bruce looked at the street outside. The riots outside have not stopped yet. Alfred, we can do our part to prevent those bad things from happening. You will support me, right? Alfred looked at Bruce in a daze. For a moment, he suddenly felt that the young master had grown up. He nodded, of course, young master. The next day, as the wildfire was gradually extinguished, the fire alarm in Smallville was also lifted. Peter and Jonathan's family drove back to the farm. Padrick Farm. Life is like rolling dice, Zoo suddenly sighed. Clark, who was helping to organize the farm tools, didn't react for a moment and looked at him in confusion. Are you tired, John? No, I just didn't expect us to be able to come back so soon, and the farm was not burned down by the wildfire. Zoo put the pitchfork aside and said happily, when I come of age, I can smoothly inherit my father's farm. Don't you want to go to college? Clark asked puzzledly. No, I don't want to, but the Godfather said we will all go to college. Zoo disagreed. Bruce didn't go to school. He is special. Special? He is just richer. If it weren't for his father, he would have been abducted by those traffickers. Clark was very curious about the conflict between Zoo and Bruce. Do you hate Bruce, John? Yes, I believe he hates me too, Zoo said indifferently. Maybe he is secretly planning how to deal with me, or thinking about what use my head can be used for in the future. It would be nice to make a skull candy plate, or a lamp. Clark was stunned by Zoo's outrageous statement. What horror movie did Zoo watch recently? He even thought of making a skull fruit plate with his head. Zoo didn't notice Clark's expression and continued, have you seen the Mexican Day of the Dead? Clark, those colorfully decorated altars, bananas, dead bread, marigolds, mangoes, red ribbons, yellow ribbons, but the most impressive thing is those unique skull candies, skulls made of hard egg whites, symbolizing death. Decorated with all kinds of candy snacks, made into the shape of eyes and mouths. They must taste delicious. I have to ask my dad to buy some for me. Clark was stunned by the horror of the Day of the Dead described by Zoo. Worried, He felt that he had to tell his godfather about Azu's obsession with the skulls of the Mexican Day of the Dead. In the evening, Peter talked to Martian Manhunter in the living room. Martian Manhunter did not return to Smallville now, but continued to stay in Metropolis and create an orphanage according to Peter's instructions. According to Peter's plan, the street children in Metropolis who helped Bruce and the fireman who escaped from the Owl Lab were all placed in the orphanage. He did not suddenly become kind, but for future layout considerations. The Martian Man, whose memory was sealed by the Martian Manhunter and who has returned to normal, is a safety he has set up. Maybe he can use it somewhere in the future. After hanging up the phone, the doorbell rang outside. Peter opened the door and found a FedEx man standing outside. Mr. Padrick, yes, here's a package for you, please sign for it. After taking the package from the courier in surprise, Peter went upstairs to open it. The package was sent from Gotham. In addition to a check for $20,000, there was also a transfer document for the ownership of the Metropolitan Bar. His name was written in the column of the transfer document holder. Very fast, after complaining about Bruce's quick movements, Peter was about to put the package away, but he didn't expect that there was something inside. With a click, the simple and elegant watch with a shining case fell out. Peter picked up the watch and looked at the fine pattern on it. He didn't expect that Bruce still insisted on giving the watch to him. Shaking his head, he looked at the system watch already on his wrist. Unfortunately, the watch given to him by the system cannot be taken off. So now the watch Bruce gave me can only be used as a collection for the time being. He stretched out his arm and looked at the pointer of the system watch on his wrist. The pointer moved slowly forward and was about to reach the end. Does this mean that the second baby is about to be born? He stood up in thought and looked up at the darkening sky outside the window. Chapter 80 I think you are a failure in learning. Looking up at the calendar on the wall, he remembered that there seemed to be a meteor shower recently. If it was this meteor shower, he had to prepare early. The next day, Peter sat in the living room, watching the news about Gotham. Currently, the riots in Gotham have calmed down. The host broadcast the latest news. Gotham police raided a terrorist's laboratory last night and found the antidote for the biological virus. The conflict and chaos were quelled by the Gotham police at the lowest cost. Then, Gotham Police Chief Nathaniel Barnes appeared on the screen and told the media about the police's achievements. After turning off the TV, Peter cast his eyes on Azu who was downstairs. John, Peter called the naughty child, I think we need to talk. Azu walked up to Peter nervously. Okay, Dad. He tried to recall if he had done anything to make Peter angry recently. Watching horror movies secretly? Or accidentally breaking Peter's fishing rod? But he couldn't blame himself for the fishing rod. It was Clark who said that his spinning bait was very effective, so he secretly took out Peter's fishing rod to go fishing. I heard that you called a gypsy yesterday. Do you know that gypsy is a racist term? This is a completely racist term, John. Why do you call them that? Peter decided to correct this kid's racial concept. Who did this kid learn racial nights from? As for the obsession with Mexican Day of the Dead skeletons, it is still within the controllable range. Sorry, Dad, I heard that gypsies always fool people around, and they also steal babies and other messy things. Azu's expression was very sincere. Dad, I won't do it next time. Remember what Dad said to you? Don't look at things with prejudice. It will prevent you from correctly and objectively understanding the world and distance you from others. I know, Dad, Azu nodded subconsciously. But I heard that they can tell fortunes through tea leaves, or by looking at the bottom of a wine glass. Dad, is it true? Azu asked curiously. Peter didn't understand the gypsy's divination. Although he thought most people might be liars, he hesitated when he thought about the American comic world. He coughed and said to Azu ambiguously, Destiny has its own specific way of operation and specific rules, and sets special requirements for those who are able to peek into the mysteries of destiny. I don't think this is absolute, Azu nodded. Ms. Nancy on Canal Street claims to be a gypsy who can tell fortunes, but everyone says she is a liar. Azu shared the news he heard with Peter. Many people say she is selling goods. Crystal balls, purple tassels, wind chimes, pungent incense, and fat cats lying on pillows are all the goods she displays in the window. Do you know her, John? No, but I have seen her. She doesn't look like a gypsy at all. She looks more like a notary. No, she looks more like a small supervisor at the church bakery bazaar. She wears a light gray blue wool sweater, red hair, and a pair of reading glasses on her nose. Peter nodded, touched his hair and stood up. It's almost noon. Dad has to cook for you. We can talk about the gossip about Ms. Nancy in the evening. When Azu heard that Peter was going to cook himself, his face immediately turned bitter. After eating the food cooked by Martian Hunter, he didn't want to eat Peter's food anymore. But under the pressure of Peter's tyranny, he didn't dare to say Dad's food is not delicious, so he could only accept it silently with a bitter face. Smallville, near the Susquehanna River. Leno Luthor was inspecting the construction site accompanied by everyone. Luthor Group plans to build an industrial park here. Because of the wildfire, the construction of the park building was temporarily stopped. Today is the day for the industrial park to resume construction. Hey, you can't go in, the security guard at the construction site stopped a man dressed as a local aboriginal. This is the land owned by my people for more than 1,000 years. Why can't I enter? The old man with brown skin and a loose round hat said to the other party with a serious expression, you should not occupy this land, I'm just a security guard. I don't know much about the disputes on your land. The security guard said that he didn't care about these disputes. His current job is to prevent the other party from entering. Just as the two were arguing, Leno Luthor heard the voice and walked over. Sir, after seeing the bus coming, the security guard immediately turned around and greeted him respectfully. Leno looked at the old man with a stern face and a serious expression. Sir, how can I help you? Are you their leader? Leno nodded. I think so. I'm Leno Luthor. Very good, then let me talk to you. Do you know that this land has been guarded by our ancestors for generations? Not very clear, Chief, but the procedure for all purchase of land is legal, and the purpose of building an industrial park is to help more people here find jobs. I want to help the people in this town, that's all. The chief looked into Leno's eyes. It sounds like I'm preventing the people of this town from living a better life, Mr. Luthor, but my eyes are sharp, and I can tell who is a wolf in sheep's clothing at a glance. Leno was emotionally stable and did not get angry because the other party called him a wolf in sheep's clothing. Mr. Chief, believe me, I can solve the problem properly, and we can coexist peacefully. The chief shook his head before the other party finished speaking. Please forgive my skepticism. Every time we are asked to coexist peacefully with you, we are either killed or driven to a wild and backward place. Anyway, Mr. Chief, we will solve the problem. I will send someone to contact you later. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. Leno said a few words to the other party and turned to leave. When walking towards the office, he asked the person in charge, are they indigenous people? Yes, local indigenous people, a tribe nearby. Some people think they are descendants of gypsies, and the tribe formed by intermarriage with Incas. They are old-fashioned and believe in the gods of nature. This is their tradition, the person in charge explained to Leno. They have protested against this several times. Leno nodded and said with a serious expression, then deal with them. I don't want to see any accidents in the progress of the project. Do you understand? Yes, sir. After giving instructions to the person in charge, Leno turned and looked at where the chief was. He found that the other party had not left yet, and had been standing there watching him. Leno shook his head, dispelled the strange feeling in his heart, and turned to leave. Thank you for your support, thank you for your votes, and thank you readers. Thank you Zing, and Zombie Loves Ghost for your rewards. Bo. This book will be available on August 1st, and a group has been established. Readers can join the group to discuss if they are interested. There are also discounts for the book. Chapter 81. Have you heard the story of the Wooden Chief? It is reported that the Perseid meteor shower is listed as one of the top 5 meteor showers in the world. Some people also call it the most suitable meteor shower for observation throughout the year because it appears in the northern hemisphere in summer, is very stable every year, and has a large number of meteors. On the TV screen, news about a meteor shower was being broadcast. Clark and Azu looked at each other. The Godfather seems to be paying special attention to the news about a meteor shower recently. Clark whispered to Azu. I guess, maybe Dad wants to make a wish. Azu made what he thought was a reasonable guess. It's a pity that I can't get the monkey's paw. Otherwise Dad wouldn't have to watch the meteor shower and make a wish. Clark was silent when he heard Azu mention the monkey's paw. He would rather never touch such an evil thing. John, the wishes fulfilled by the monkey's paw are all twisted. The Godfather said that they only bring disgusting happiness to humans. Azu shrugged his shoulders disapprovingly. I don't think it matters. Wishes must have a price. How can there be gifts without reason in this world? Clark frowned. He felt that Azu's point of view was wrong. But for a moment, he couldn't think of how to refute him. Peter didn't notice the two naughty kids' discussion about making wishes for the meteor shower. He continued to watch the news on TV. The Perseid meteor shower will peak on the evening of the 12th and the early morning of the 13th. There will be 50 to 60 meteors exploding in the night sky. Experts predict that the smoke threat from the wildfires in Kansas may cause some trouble for observation. Although there are no clouds in most parts of the Midwest, the smoke from the wildfires burning throughout the region will cause haze and affect the visibility of the meteor shower. After hearing that the wildfires would affect the visibility of the meteors, Peter frowned slightly. He lowered his head and glanced at his watch. The hands were close to completing a circle. Today is the 10th, and the second baby will probably be born the day after tomorrow. After staring at the TV screen for a while, he looked at the clock on the wall. It was already 10 o'clock in the evening. Standing up, he put aside the matter of the meteor shower and said to the two children who were still arguing, "Okay, it's late. Clark, John, you should go to bed. Dad, can you tell me a bedtime story?" Zoo asked expectantly. "I want to, too." Clark immediately said that he also wanted to hear a bedtime story. "No, Clark, I mentioned it first. You should line up," Zoo said unhappily. "This is not a competition." Seeing the two quarreling again, Peter had no choice but to stop them. "Don't quarrel, you two can be together." In Zoo's room, Clark and Zoo were lying on the bed, looking at Peter expectantly. Peter picked up a book and asked, "So, what story do you want to hear tonight?" Zoo immediately said impatiently, "Stories about gypsies or Indians. Dad, have you heard their stories?" Since wandering around Ms. Nancy's fortune-telling house, he has been quite interested in these stories of indigenous people. "I've heard some." Peter put the storybook aside. "Are you sure you want to listen?" "Sure," Clark nodded and said. He was also quite interested in this kind of story. "Have you heard the story of the wooden chief?" Peter coughed and asked the two. "No," the two said in unison. "Well, this is a story from a long time ago. The story happened in a small town similar to Smallville. There was an old man named Ray in the town. He had a store. This store used to be the center of the prosperous town, but as the town became deserted, the store gradually became unpopular." Peter said in a mysterious tone, "There is a wooden statue in front of his store. It is a wooden chief." One day, an Indian named Benjamin came to Ray. He brought a bag of priceless jewelry on behalf of the tribe as collateral for the money Ray had borrowed from him over the years. "What happened next?" Azu asked impatiently. "Later, Benjamin's nephew, Sam, came to Ray's convenience store with two accomplices, killed Ray and his wife, and stole the bag of jewelry. The old wooden chief outside the door knew what happened. In order to help Ray and his wife get revenge, the old wooden chief resurrected, painted himself with war paint, and went to the homes of the three bad guys to start revenge. Because the revenge scene later was not suitable for children, Peter only briefly described it. At the end of the story, the old wooden chief returned to the convenience store and turned into a wooden sculpture again to guard the store. After listening to it, Azu and Clark had different expressions. After digesting it for a while, Zu asked curiously, "Dad, can the wooden statues of Indians really come back to life? Do they know black magic?" "I don't know." Peter shook his head. "Maybe it's not black magic, but the emotions of Mr. and Mrs. Ray drove the wooden chief to come back to life." "Godfather, I think so too." Clark nodded in agreement with Peter. "Greed can always control people's fragile emotions, but I think the most precious thing is the promises kept to each other and the selfless and sincere emotions." After hearing this story, Clark suddenly knew how to refute Zu's remarks about the monkey's paw. Peter looked at Clark in surprise. This kid is so young, but he can say such insightful words? He looked at Zu in deep thought. By the way, should Zu also read Nietzsche? At the same time, the construction site of the Luther Group Industrial Park, where the chief had been during the day. The security staff was about to refuel the pickup truck when they suddenly heard a rustling sound from the nearby bushes. Hearing the strange sound, he immediately put down the oil barrel and turned around. A dark shadow seemed to flash in the bushes in the shadow, and a strange breath came. Damn it! With a bad premonition in his heart, he immediately ran towards the pickup truck. He opened the car door with a bang, took out the toolbox in a hurry, and then took out a pistol from it. Desperately suppressing the fear in his heart, he loaded the bullet. After doing everything, he quickly jumped out of the car and looked into the bushes. As a result, he saw a huge, snow-white wolf standing in front of him, staring at him with a faint light in his eyes. The frightened security guard dared not move. The momentum exuded by the giant wolf made his blood seem to solidify. After a moment, he forced himself to suppress the fear in his heart, took a deep breath, and focused on the gun in his hand. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82: White Wolf and Alien Spaceship. As if he saw the security guard's intention to shoot, the White Wolf roared and rushed over without waiting for him to raise his gun to shoot. Damn it! Feeling the approach of death, the security guard immediately raised his pistol and prepared to shoot. But he was still a step too slow and was pounced on by the White Wolf with a bang. The pistol in his hand was instantly thrown out. He felt a burning pain in his body after being hit by a claw in the chest, and bursts of stabbing pain came from his back. He was terrified and lost his ability to move. He could only watch the White Wolf's sharp teeth approach his throat. No. No. Please, don't kill me, the security guard, who felt the approach of death, desperately begged for mercy from the White Wolf. The White Wolf, with a faint light in his eyes, listened to the security guard's plea for mercy, and his fierce movements paused. He slowly removed the claws pressing on the security guard, looked at the security guard, and then turned and ran quickly into the forest. The security guard, who kept praying with his eyes closed, dared to open his eyes only after he felt the weight pressing on him disappear. Still in shock, he staggered to his feet and looked around. In the dark forest, waves of thick white fog surged. He touched the wound on his chest, ignoring the pain in his body, and quickly ran to the pickup truck as fast as he could, started the car and fled from the construction site. The next day. I am the sea breeze. I will take away your sails and whistle through your broken hull, making it impossible for you to move forward. Azu and Clark stood side by side, ready to start a race. In order to boost his momentum before the race, Azu threatened Clark. Clark was not to be outdone. Okay, then I am the indestructible golden ship. After both of them were ready, Azu took out a matchstick and flicked it forward. The spinning matchstick rubbed against each other and ignited in the air. The two rushed out at lightning speed. Whoosh, whoosh, the two shadows moved almost side by side. But Clark soon fell behind. When the two ran to the fork in the road, they chose different roads to run to their destination. Bang! Zu used his super jump and easily jumped over a hill, landing heavily on the ground. However, before he could continue running forward, his soft feet suddenly sank. The ground collapsed, and Zu, who was caught off guard, was swallowed up instantly. On the other side, Clark ran to the finish line, but still could not see Zu. Logically, even if Zu was not as fast as he was, it was impossible for him not to come for so long. Worried, he immediately returned to the original path to look for Zu, but still found nothing. Godfather, Peter was cleaning the barn on the farm, and Clark rushed over in a hurry. Godfather, Zu is missing. Looking at the sweaty Clark, a big question mark appeared on Peter's head. Don't worry, Clark, tell me, what happened? Peter comforted Clark a few words and asked him to slowly tell what happened. We were racing, I chose a different way, and then John disappeared. John will be fine, Clark, now take me to the place where you and John were racing. He didn't believe that Zu would be in trouble. With his kid's current superpowers, he won't fall down easily. Unless the soldier boy descends from the sky and eliminates Zu's superpowers with a chest cannon. Peter took Clark and explored along the original route and soon found a suspicious place. A collapsed cave appeared in front of the two. Peter stood on top and shouted to the bottom, John, are you in there? I'm down there, Dad. Hearing Zu's voice, Peter breathed a sigh of relief. Although he was not too worried that the other party would encounter an accident, he still breathed a sigh of relief after confirming that the other party was fine. Bang! He jumped into the collapsed cave with Clark and landed heavily on the ground. Zu was standing in front of the rock wall, watching something. When he saw Peter coming down, he immediately walked quickly to his side. Are you okay, John? I'm fine, Dad. I've been looking at the mural since I fell down. Peter nodded and touched Zu's hair, looking around. The cave was wide and dim, and there were murals carved on the rock wall that seemed to be a bit old. Just as he was about to take a closer look at the contents of the murals, he found that there seemed to be someone else's breath in the dark cave. Duh. Footsteps were heard from a corner of the cave. Then a young woman with a flashlight came into view. The woman with a tool bag on her back and a flashlight looked at Peter and the other two in surprise. You guys, she shone the flashlight on the top of the heads of the people. Did you fall from above? Yes, Peter looked at the brown-skinned young woman in front of him. Who are you? I'm Kelly. I'm doing some research nearby. I came to see after hearing the sound of rock collapse. I didn't expect to enter here. She took down the tool bag and took out a bandage and hemostatic agent from it swiftly. This is 100 feet high. You must have been seriously injured when you fell. Seeing that Kelly was about to treat them, Clark and Zhu looked at Peter for help. They are fine. It may be because there is a buffer below. Peter indicated that the three were not injured and did not need treatment. When Kelly wanted to say something else, Zhu suddenly pointed to the mural on the wall and said, "Dad, what is this?" Peter cast his eyes towards the rock wall. The rock wall depicted a portrait of an alien. Amid the meteor shower, a spaceship fell from the sky. After the spaceship fell from the sky, the scene was a doomsday scene of a city in ruins, collapsed buildings, and cracked sky. Kelly shone the flashlight on the mural and said in surprise, "This is very similar to the story circulating in our tribe. Are you aboriginals?" Peter asked the girl. "Yes, I am a nearby Kauash." Kelly shone the flashlight on the murals around her, and her expression became more and more surprised. "This story has been circulating in our tribe for many years. It is a prophecy that the rain of fire falling from the sky will bring a hero, and every once in a while, the rain of fire will bring a person chosen by fate." She shone the flashlight on a mural as she spoke. "Here, these people chosen by fate will cause the entire universe to fall into turmoil and cause the world to fall into war, but at the same time, they will also be the ones who cleanse the sins and rebuild order." Peter listened to Kelly's story and was slightly touched. The rain of fire fell from the sky, bringing a person chosen by fate every once in a while. Isn't this talking about his own situation? The system sends a baby every once in a while. Are these babies chosen by fate? Will they cleanse their sins and restore order? How to cleanse and rebuild? Is there going to be an interstellar war or a galactic expedition? Azu didn't notice Peter's mess and leaned over to the mural to carefully examine the spaceship. "Dad, I can help you catch all the people in these spaceships," Azu said confidently. "Thank you for your continued support, readers. This book will be available at midnight tonight. Please support me. Thank you." Chapter 83 Remarks on the release. Breaking news, this book is on the shelves at midnight today. If nothing unexpected happens, the VIP chapter will be updated at 0000 hours in the morning. There may be delays, so please understand if it is a few minutes late. On the first day of the shelf, Sanchin guarantees more than 10,000 words on the first day, and will try to maintain more than 8,000 words every day in the future. If there is a leader, Sanchin will not sleep to add more. I hope readers will support the first order, which is really important to Sanchin. Sanchin has not eaten meat for a week, and the Hakimi cat food at home has been out of stock for several days. I hesitated again and again when I wanted to buy a bottle of iced black tea yesterday, and finally fled in panic under the contemptuous eyes of the store owner. The keyboard broke the day before yesterday, and I wanted to secretly go to the company warehouse to get a keyboard to use, but was caught on the spot by the manager. Escape. So, for Sanchin and Hakimi, I beg readers to donate a first order. Okay, the pitiful part is over, and the following text begins. Thank you for your support, dear readers. I try to remember every one of your names. Every encouragement and praise from you gives me the courage to move forward. The word thank you sounds so weak, so powerless, and so negative. Just like Azu said, I want to thank you as the most insignificant thing we can give to others. It is not just a nod, a shrug, or an anxious gesture. Assuming that these are not thanks, then the perfectly frozen high five with the outstanding people should be considered as thanks. So which outstanding people should I shake hands with to express my sincere gratitude? Here they are: Editor Pengle, who never gave up and supported me to open this book. Zio Mengxin, who encouraged me and always believed in me in the long night. Peng Cheng, who said tough words, but was willing to reach out in the end. And all the readers who read Father's Sorrow and like to follow it all the way. Thank you for your continued support, and I hope you will always be treated gently by the world. Finally, it is the sacrifice part of the legend of Gideon. American Comics, Becoming the God of Technology from Osborne, author Caramel Pomelo. Chinese Comics, From the Chinese Boy to the Super God Academy, author Nalan Yidi. Spiritual Resurrection, I Have Mastered All the Kung Fu I Made, author Middle-Aged Handsome Man. Village Chief, I Want to Be Famous, Author Yunlian Jinbin. Finally, I wish you all to smile forever, and good luck will come naturally. I am Kim Samsoon. Chapter 84. The second father sorrow arrives. The next day. Patrick's farm. Peter and Jonathan's family sat together to enjoy coffee and dessert. Do you know anything about the Kavachi people, Jonathan? Peter asked Jonathan. One thing is that they are said to be descendants of the Incas, and perhaps have a little Indian or Gypsy blood. They don't have their own writing and believe in nature and all things. Jonathan told him what he knew. The Kavachi people believe that the underground caves just discovered belonged to their ancestors, so they tried to stop the creation of the Luther Group's industrial park, believing that it would destroy those caves and destroy nature. Martha added, I heard that the security guards in the park were attacked by wild beasts yesterday. Perhaps these Kavachi people really can drive animals. Peter listened quietly to the words of the Kent couple, and his thoughts turned to the encounter with Kelly in the cave yesterday. Did that mural really reveal some kind of prophecy? Exhaling, he looked at the calendar on the wall. Tonight is the day when the Perseid meteor shower will come. Jonathan, Martha, can John stay with you for the night? I have something to do tonight and need to go out, he said to the couple solemnly. Of course. The couple looked at each other, and Jonathan asked him, do you need our help? Maybe Martha and I can help. No, it's just some personal matters that can be solved quickly. Peter declined the two. He sent Clark and John to Kent because he didn't want the two naughty kids to know about the spaceship. Azu thought he was his biological child. If he saw this scene and found out that he was also sent by a spaceship after digging deep, his mentality would probably change. Folding his arms, he looked at the blue sky outside. However, when the baby arrives at the farm, how should he explain to Azu about the origin of the baby? Was it adopted from an orphanage? Or just tell him that he picked up a baby as the mural said? If it was for such a reason, according to his understanding of Azu, this naughty kid would definitely do something naughty. Although he would not do anything to hurt the baby, he would definitely be very resistant to it. As if he could tell that Peter was worried, Jonathan coughed and said to him, would you like some coffee and dessert, Peter? At night, the curtain of darkness gradually closed. Peter sat on the roof of the barn on the farm, quietly waiting for the arrival of the meteor shower. He looked down at the watch on his wrist, and the pointer was infinitely close to the end. He exhaled and looked up at the sky. Due to the influence of the wildfire, although it was a clear day, the visibility of the sky was not high. Suddenly, a fast and bright meteor streaked through the atmosphere, leaving a long tail behind. The colorful tail entered the atmosphere, released a moment of light and heat, and then dissipated at a speed visible to the naked eye. With the arrival of the first meteor, the whole gorgeous meteor shower opened the grand curtain. Green, red, orange and blue, these different colors of meteors intertwined a picture in the night sky. Peter looked up and stared at the gorgeous meteor picture, while paying attention to the movement in the farm, preparing for the landing of the spacecraft. However, until the end of the meteor shower, there was still no trace of the spacecraft. Even the watch on her wrist didn't give any prompts. Did I make a mistake? Isn't today the day when the spaceship will land? Looking down at the farm, Peter fell into deep thought. At the same time, in a field not far from the farm, a white wolf staggered forward. The crimson blood from its abdomen slowly flowed out, soon soaking its snow-white fur. Bullets penetrated her body, constantly taking away her vitality. Plop! In the end, due to exhaustion, the white wolf fell heavily to the ground. She tried to stand up, but couldn't do it at all. The bullets fired by the security guards in the Luther Park hit the fatal part of her body. Lying on the soft ground, staring at the sky with lifeless eyes, the white wolf felt the passing of life. A meteor streaked across the sky, emitting brilliant light, reflecting into her eyes. Looking at the meteor shower that rarely occurs in a few years, a trace of desire for life flashed in the white wolf's eyes. Boom! Not far from her, a meteorite suddenly fell from the sky. With a deafening sound, a big hole was smashed into the ground. A huge vibration came along the ground, and the strong vibration stimulated her. The soil was thrown into the air and then fell around her. The white wolf, with dilated pupils, looked at the meteorite falling from the sky. Shock. No. It was not a meteorite, but a spaceship. It was exactly the same as the scene she saw on the rock wall of the underground cave yesterday. Crack! 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 In her unbelievable eyes, the silver and shimmering spaceship hatch slowly opened, and a baby with brown hair slowly crawled out. Probably attracted by the beautiful appearance of the white wolf, the baby curiously crawled towards her. When crawling to her side, The baby reached out and touched her soft hair. The white wolf panted and looked at the legendary person chosen by fate. The baby reached out and touched the white wolf's hair. When she touched the wound, she couldn't help but let out a painful groan. As if sensing the white wolf's pain, the baby's hand emitted a pure white energy ball full of life. The energy flowed slowly toward her wound like a fluid. Then, in the white wolf's shocked eyes, the pain was wiped out by this energy, and even the wound from the gunshot was slowly healing, and the bullet in the body was also eliminated invisibly. With a storm in her heart, she looked at the baby emitting a gentle breath of life. Boom! The sound of footsteps suddenly came from behind, interrupting her thoughts. Peter looked at the baby emitting a gentle breath in shock, and then looked at the white wolf lying on the ground. Under his gaze, the white wolf's body began to change. The snow-white hair on the whole body began to fade, and the appearance began to change. Finally, the wolf turned into a naked woman. The woman lying on the ground revealed broad skin and a curvy figure. Peter stared at the other person and quickly recognized that this was the Kavachi girl he met in the cave before, Kelly. Taking a deep breath, he walked quickly towards the other person, took off his coat and covered her with it. Then he bent down and gently held the baby in his arms. He held his finger in his mouth, looked at his baby with curious eyes, and made a baby sound. Peter flicked his cheek with his finger. Your landing direction is off this time, Star-Lord. Thank you all for subscribing. On the first day of August, I would like to ask for your monthly votes. Bo. Chapter 85 I am not a god, I am a power bank. Padwick Farm. Peter handed a cup of coffee to Kelly, who was lying on the sofa and covered with a blanket. Have a cup of hot coffee. Kelly looked down at her naked body, blushing and wrapping the blanket tightly around her. Thank you. She took the coffee from Peter and thanked him somewhat unnaturally. At the same time, she looked at Star-Lord, who was sitting on the sofa and playing with a toy in his hand. Did he really fall from the sky? She still asked in disbelief. The scene that just happened made her unbelievable now. Just like the prophecy circulated in the tribe, the hero fell from the sky in the rain of fire and healed her dying self with magical powers. She originally thought it was just a legend, but she didn't expect the prophecy to come true, which made her feel dazed. If I say that it might be an illusion caused by your excessive bleeding, Miss Kelly, would you believe it? Peter asked her while holding the coffee. No, it's impossible. My wound, I saw him heal my wound with my own eyes. Kelly immediately denied Peter's statement. Well, sometimes, I doubt my own eyes. For example, just now I saw that, Miss Kelly, you changed from a white wolf into a human. As far as I know, there haven't been wolves in Smallville for 99 years. Peter put down his coffee and asked her, compared to an alien spaceship falling from the sky, a human turning into an animal is also incredible, right? Hearing Peter asking her about the white wolf, Kelly turned her head away guiltily. This is the secret art of our Kavachi tribe, so you are druids. Druid, Kelly, who didn't understand the Warcraft culture, shook her head and said, no, we are not druids. We just believe in nature and animals. Peter nodded. It seems that the real version of the story of the Wooden Chief has been staged, but I can understand it a little bit. Peter had done research on the Kavachi tribe before. He looked into their eyes and said, after your tribal name is translated, it means the fantasy beast tribe. Legend has it that people in your tribe can transform into wild beasts. I thought this was an ancient legend, just like those bizarre legends circulating in small towns. After making Kelly feel a little embarrassed by his stare, Peter shook his head and turned his eyes away. I'm not interested in the transformation secrets of your fantasy beast tribe. Another question is, why were you shot? Kelly hesitated for a moment and said to Peter, it was the Luther group. Luther, yes, I wanted to turn into a white wolf to scare them away and make them give up their plan to build an industrial zone here, but they ambushed many people in the park. Kelly bit her lip and said unwillingly, I was ambushed by them and fled here after being shot. After listening to the other party's explanation, Peter nodded. Your original purpose was to get this piece of land, and now you have discovered the underground cave, so you don't want to give up even more, right? Kelly nodded firmly. Yes, no matter what, we have to protect this land, although it's a bit difficult. I should be able to solve it for you, Peter said to her. Are you willing to help us? Kelly looked at him in shock. Why? She didn't understand why the other party was willing to help her. We are all the same kind of people, Kelly, aren't we? Unique and born different from ordinary people, separated from the crowd, Peter said in a sincere tone that he didn't believe it himself. In the previous encounter in the cave, He thought that as long as the other party was still sane, he would definitely think of Zhu and Clark because of what happened today, and wonder if they were also babies sent by meteors. After all, no child can jump from a height of 100 feet without any damage. If he killed the other party directly for the sake of keeping it secret, it would be a bit of a waste. After all, where can you find a female nanny who can be both thoughtful and delicate and can transform into a bodyguard of the White Wolf? Martian Hunter can only be a teacher who teaches skills, and Peter doesn't trust him to take care of babies. After many thoughts turned over in his mind, he coughed and continued, "This baby saved you, maybe there is some fate between you two, so, Miss Kelly, are you willing to accept the offer and be my assistant?" Kelly was stunned when she heard Peter's solemn invitation to her. She looked at Star-Lord, who was lying on the sofa and having fun. The scene of the other party releasing energy in his hand and saving her before appeared in her mind. She was now full of curiosity and gratitude for this baby. Then she thought of the prophecy about the tribe. She was tempted, frowned and said to Peter, "But I have no experience in this area, whether it is farm work or taking care of babies." Peter shrugged, "It doesn't matter, everything starts from the first step." After thinking for a while and struggling with her mind, she finally nodded, "I do." She stood up, wrapped her graceful body with a blanket, walked to Star-Lord and hugged him. "Do you want to give him a name, sir?" Peter looked at Star-Lord in his arms, thought for a while and said, "Just call him Little Peter Patrick, or give him a nickname." Star-Lord, Star-Lord, repeating the name, Kelly nodded thoughtfully, "It comes from the stars, a very suitable name." As she spoke, she took off a bracelet engraved with stars on the surface from her hand and put it on Star-Lord's hand. "This is passed down from generation to generation in our family. I hope it can bless him." No, Peter wanted to stop her, but unexpectedly, the other party quickly put the bracelet on. "Is there any problem?" Kelly looked at him in surprise. "Forget it." Waving his hands, Peter indicated that it was okay. The reason for stopping the other party was that he was afraid that Star-Lord would bring bad luck to Kelly. After all, this kid was a well-known father sorrower. The deaths of his biological father, adoptive father, and father-in-law were all related to him. If Kelly and this kid had any family relationship in the future, he was afraid that something might happen to him. He had the system and was not afraid of the curse, but others could not guarantee it. Half an hour later, on the second floor, in the room, Peter closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and then slowly stretched out his hand. As his mind focused, a pure white energy ball condensed on his palm. The condensed energy body gradually stabilized. But the next second it was annihilated in his hand because of Peter's mistake. Raising his hand, looking at the energy gradually disappearing on his palm, he frowned. "Is this the body of God given to me by the system?" Chapter 86, Azu's mental state. The first time he saw Star-Lord, the watch on his wrist reminded him, the baby born this time is Star-Lord. And the system also rewarded him with a divine body this time. The so-called divine power belongs to the ability of Star-Lord's original father, Ego. The Spartan Ego conducted experiments on his own planet, and after merging himself with a planet, he called himself God. And he also got an ability, the power of God. This is an ability that can create out of thin air, which is called energy plasticity by Ego. People with this ability can use their own energy or even the energy of Ego's planet to create, and can create any material they can imagine, and can even manipulate it at the molecular level. Ego once created a human form Ego, and used it to communicate with Star-Lord through his human form and implement various plans. Peter vaguely remembered that after Star-Lord inherited Ego's divine power, he gave up this bloodline in order to avenge his mother and blew up Ego. After Ego's death, the divine power in Star-Lord's body also disappeared completely. Taking a deep breath, he looked at his palm that was emitting residual heat. Originally, he thought that the system had given him a divine body, and that he could become as powerful as Ego. But after some experiments, he realized that this divine body was somewhat of a ripoff. His divine body was not bound to any planet, but to his own body as a planet. The power of this divine body was pitifully weak. Not only could he not manipulate matter at the molecular level, he could not create matter, and could only mobilize the tiny amount of energy in his body and release it outward. It seemed that the only function of the buff given to him by the system this time was to make him a power bank for Star-Lord. Star-Lord could obtain the power of the gods from his planetary body. On the contrary, he should always be vigilant, lest this kid trigger the dad-killing talent in the future and blow up his planet. Standing by the window, gazing at the dark night outside, Peter slowly opened his fingers. A strange white energy body revolved around his fingers. If Star-Lord's power of God is inherited from his planet, logically speaking, the stronger he is as a planet, the stronger Star-Lord's power of God will be. But now, when he cannot provide him with a powerful God buff, how can he release powerful energy to heal Kelly? Could it be that the talent possessed by this kid is beyond his cognition? Pondering, he clenched his fist and annihilated the energy on his fingers. He is now a planet and Star-Lord has become a satellite. So will the satellite revolve around the planet, or will it eventually break away from the planet? The next day, early in the morning. Padrick Farm. Azu looked at Star-Lord and Kelly, who suddenly appeared on the farm in shock. Are you from the cave that day? I'm Kelly Joseph, your father's assistant. Kelly, holding Star-Lord, greeted Zu and Clark. Assistant, Zu looked at her in surprise. Weren't you exploring the cave yesterday? He didn't expect that the other party was still exploring in the wild yesterday, and now he has become his father's assistant. Actually, field exploration is my hobby, Kelly explained in an unnatural tone. Is this your child? Clark next to her asked after taking a look at Star-Lord in the other's arms. No, I don't have a child, she looked at Peter, not knowing how to explain. He is your younger brother. Zu, Peter walked over and said to him. Brother, yes, he will live with us in the future. After a moment of silence, Zu said to Peter with a complicated expression, Dad, do you want to find a stepmother for me? Stepmother? Kelly was stunned, and looked suspiciously at Star-Lord in her arms, and then at Azu. This brat didn't think that he was holding a child and was here to marry Peter, right? I haven't even been on a date, how come I suddenly became a single mother in his eyes? No, of course not, this is not my child. Kelly, who felt that her innocence was insulted, immediately explained, this is your father and I picked him up from outside. After hearing Kelly's explanation, Clark and Azu looked at each other. Azu felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. When he asked his father where he came from, his father told him that he was picked up from outside. And according to his experience, most of the students at Smallwood Elementary School have been answered like this by their parents. Azu was thinking about it and looking at Peter. He wanted to know from Peter if Peter really wanted to find a stepmother. Although he didn't object to this, he thought that Dad had to be cautious about finding a stepmother. After all, there are many such plots in movies about vicious stepmothers. And with a child he looked at Star-Lord with some dissatisfaction. The children of stepmothers are always more likable than the children of ex-wives. No. This baby was not born by my father and this woman, but she brought it over by herself. In other words, the other party is the same as himself. Azu pinched his chin and fell into complicated thinking. Peter didn't know that a palace fight was going on in Azu's mind at this time. He walked over and patted Azu on the head. Of course not, it's not a marriage. Kelly is my new assistant. She will be in charge of your daily life in the future, just like Jones. He paused and looked at Star-Lord. In addition, Kelly is right. This child is a baby that fell from the sky, just like what we saw in the underground cave, a baby that fell to the nearby area on a meteor. Clark listened to Peter's explanation and looked at Star-Lord in surprise. That mural, is it real? Godfather, Clark, you have to keep this a secret and can't tell anyone, not even your parents. Can you do it? Clark nodded heavily. I can do it, Godfather, I swear. Azu looked at Clark, who was swearing. He didn't believe such a ridiculous thing. In his heart, this must be a lie that his father told to save Kelly's face. This baby must be Kelly's child. Although he had made a judgment that he thought was correct in his heart, he still pretended to be innocent. I know, Dad, even if he came on a meteor, I will still take care of him as my brother. Well, Dad believes you. Peter ruffled Azu's hair. He didn't expect that things would be resolved so smoothly. Azu accepted the fact that he had a younger brother so quickly. Dad, what's his name? Azu looked at Star-Lord and asked curiously. Little Peter Padrick, or you can call him Star-Lord. Hearing that the other party inherited his father's name, Azu immediately didn't want this stinky younger brother anymore. Chapter 87 Fortune Teller Azu and Clark. Clark stuffed the whole maple syrup bread into his mouth. Did you eat? Azu looked at Clark's expression, as if he was watching a big python swallowing the neighbor's pet cat. Clark swallowed the bread and reluctantly said to him, What? I'm talking about your eating style, Clark. I see you eat every day, but every time you eat, your eating style is so unique. Clark felt that he was quite normal. Ms. Kelly's cooking is better than the Godfather's, so sometimes I eat more. It has been a week since Star-Lord came to the farm. Azu has gradually begun to adapt to the life of Kelly and Star-Lord in the family. Although he still doesn't like Star-Lord from the bottom of his heart. He always feels that this guy will threaten his inheritance of the farm. After all, this kid has the same name as his father. But he can't show his dissatisfaction at home, because it will make his father angry. And the food cooked by Miss Kelly is better than his father. If he tries to drive her out, it will not be worth the loss. The tangled mood makes him very unhappy. Maybe you should keep in shape. You eat more than Star-Lord? Star-Lord had a big appetite when he was a baby, and he was totally unlike an ordinary baby. As a result, Star-Lord ate more and more. Zeus said to Clark, otherwise you will soon become a fat man like Dal or Star-Lord. It doesn't matter. The Godfather said that my metabolism is the same as that of a rabbit. Okay, Mr. Rabbit. Zeus cast his eyes on Ms. Nancy's store on the street. Across the street, he saw the flashing neon lights on the window. The fonts on the neon lights were very eye-catching: psychic fortune-telling, palm reading, tarot fortune-telling. Mr. Rabbit, do you want to try fortune-telling? He planned to take Clark to fortune-telling. No, I don't have money. Clark said he wanted to have a fortune-telling, but he didn't have enough money. It doesn't matter, I have it, Zeus said and took out a $10 bill. This is my pocket money from mowing the lawn. We can try it. Okay, I also want to know if Ms. Nancy can tell fortunes. Clark happily followed Zeus to the fortune-telling house. After pushing open the door, they saw a small shop with fluorescent lights, which was popular with knitting fans. Soft blankets, baby hats and bundles of yarn were displayed on the brown shelves. Ms. Nancy, who was sitting behind the desk, looked at the two naughty children in surprise. Welcome, children, how can I help you? Nancy did not drive them away because they were children. Instead, she asked them in a gentle tone. Hello, Miss Nancy, I want to tell your fortune. Zeus tried her best to act like an adult. Well, $40, I can give you some advice, children. Nancy said that she could tell their fortunes for $40. But I only have $10, Miss Nancy. If you can tell the fortune correctly, maybe we will buy a hat or something else you need in the future. Zeus started to make a promise. Deal. Ms. Nancy took the money from Zeus and stuffed it into the collar of his wool shirt. What do you want to tell? After letting the two sit down, Ms. Nancy asked them. I want to know. After hesitating for a moment, Zeus quickly glanced at Clark and said, will you tell me what I mean, Miss Nancy? I promise, no cheating, no hiding, of course. Okay, Zeus finally made up his mind and asked the other party, can you help me calculate whether I can inherit my father's farm? What? Hearing Zeus' question, Nancy was stunned. Is this child thinking about his family's farm at such a young age? Who is your parent? She asked Zeus carefully. Peter Patrick, it's him, I know him. Ms. Nancy smiled. You want to inherit your father's farm, right, John? Yes, but something different has happened now, Zeus said with some distress. I suddenly have a younger brother. Do you think he will threaten you? Ms. Nancy was more and more surprised. Are children nowadays so mature? Yes, I think there is such a possibility. I don't think that's what you should care about right now, but, John, I'm willing to help you with divination. Through the spiritualism of palm reading, Nancy asked the two to stretch out their hands. Clark pointed at himself in surprise. Do I want one too? Of course, I can help you too with divination. Clark, you are included. Clark nodded and hesitantly put his hand on the other's palm. Ms. Nancy's hand was very warm, but Clark's whole body shuddered as if he had been electrocuted. The three sat quietly, and no one spoke. Suddenly, Ms. Nancy's hand suddenly held Zeus and Clark tightly like a fly trap. Ms. Nancy's eyes widened, and the white part of her eyes began to turn red due to the burst blood vessels, as if she saw some horrible scene. Feeling the other's palm getting warmer and warmer, Clark felt that the other wanted to melt his hand. The two saw each other's head and suddenly shook wildly. Blood also dripped from her nose, and drops of blood stained the tablecloth red. Ms. Nancy's frightening performance made Clark immediately pull his hand out of the other person's hand. Zeus also quickly pulled his hand out. The two of them took a step back at the same time, staring at Ms. Nancy, who was convulsing with eyes wide open. Miss Nancy, are you okay? Clark asked the other person in a low voice. Who are you? Ms. Nancy looked at the two people in doubt, breathing heavily, wiping the blood from her nose. What do you mean? Nancy pointed at Zeus and said, there is a deep, black, withered thing in you. It is calling for its mother like a lost child. You are the hand of death, you are the machine of death. I can hear the sound of belt transmission and wheels turning. As she said that, she took out a $10 bill and stuffed it into Zu's pocket as quickly as possible. Take it, I won't take your money. I don't want to have anything to do with him. Get out of here. Wait, Azu wanted to say something, but the two were pushed out directly. Standing at the door, Azu scratched his head in frustration. He didn't quite understand why the other party said that to him. But he seemed to understand a little. He often dreamed of horrible things, eerie laboratories, and bloody human experiments. This was probably why the other party said he was the god of death. Unfortunately, he did not ask about the inheritance of the farm. He sighed with some regret, and looked at Clark, and found that he looked absent-minded. Clark, are you okay? I seem to have seen something horrible. Chapter 88, Fatty's Diet Problem. What terrible thing? Zu looked at Clark, who was in a state of anxiety. Did the school bus and Mr. Jonathan fall into the river together? Zu scratched his head and asked, did you get into a very terrible situation because you didn't know which one to save first? No, of course not. Clark glared at Zu. When Ms. Nancy was holding me just now, I saw a flashback. It disappeared quickly, but I saw it. What was it? Clark, I saw Miss Kelly, you, and me, Godfather. We all fell down, and it was pitch black around us, and everything was blurry then. A white warm light illuminated the night. Padrick Farm. Clark told Peter what he saw at Ms. Nancy's place. Godfather, I didn't see it very clearly, but the feeling was very real. I was very scared. Clark looked at Peter with helpless eyes. Is that real? Ms. Nancy said she can communicate with spirits. Will what I see happen? No, that's not real. Clark, Peter whispered to comfort him. Ms. Nancy said she can tell your fate, but that doesn't mean that what you see is fate. Clark exuded a melancholy atmosphere. But, Godfather, I read a book that said that fate is like a huge roller coaster. Everyone is firmly fixed in their seats and no one can get off early. During the roller coaster, people will experience peaks and valleys, sharp turns and long straight lines. People will scream, be nervous, and be afraid, and the final ending is always slowly driving towards the end. Fate determines everything we have to experience. The hand of fate dominates everything in the world. He raised his head and asked Peter, Godfather, is this true? Is fate fixed? Peter looked at Clark in surprise. He didn't expect that this kid was becoming more and more like a philosopher. Clark, fate cannot bind you, he said to the other party. Remember what we discussed? Not afraid of choices to decide your own destiny? I know, Godfather, I'm just afraid. I'm afraid of losing you. No, of course not. Peter comforted the other party. His eyes became a little more serious. This gypsy is really not a good person. She is not a gypsy. In the backyard, Kelly, wearing a tight vest and a ponytail, took out the arrows from the quiver behind her and shot at the target opposite. After living on the farm for a few days, she couldn't hold back the wildness in her heart and set up an archery range in the backyard. Swoosh, the arrow hit the target accurately. Kelly shook her braids, turned around and wiped the sweat, and checked Star-Lord, who was sitting on the child's chair next to her. Of course, she is not an Indian either. She is just a Mexican who wandered here a long time ago. My grandfather told me about her. Peter nodded and looked at Star-Lord, who was waving his hands happily in the stroller. His brows furrowed slightly. Star-Lord eats too much? He suspected that this kid would soon grow into the Fat Lord in his previous life, without waiting for him to grow up. He had a headache when he thought of Star-Lord, who was full of fat, dancing awkwardly in front of everyone. You should control his weight, Kelly. Kelly said that she felt wronged. I have never stuffed food into him. I have always scientifically prepared Star-Lord's meals according to the method taught by Ms. Neal. Then it seems that this nutrition is too rich. Kelly wiped the sweat from her head. Maybe this little guy is a pig. He grows fast and eats a lot. By the way, my grandfather wants to meet you, Kelly said to him. He wants to thank you. Because of your help, Leno Luthor stopped the construction of his industrial park, and the murals in the underground caves were also preserved. You're welcome. I am also very interested in those murals. Peter reached out and picked up Star-Lord, and found that the little guy had gained a lot of weight. Growing so fast, he is indeed a pig. He had gone to Leno's manor before and talked to him about this matter. Leno agreed very readily and stopped the plan to build the park. Although the other party did not mention anything, there was no doubt that he owed this guy a favor. Honestly, Kelly glanced at the Star-Lord in Peter's arms and asked him hesitantly, Peter, are you an Earthling or an alien? Why do you ask that? Because that night, You easily dragged the spacecraft into the barn cellar, and Clark and John, you fell from a height of 100 feet and were unharmed. Kelly looked at Peter with a complicated expression. Clark and Azu were also chosen by fate and fell from the rain of fire, right? No. Peter shook his head and said, Clark is the child of the Kent couple. What about Azu? Azu is different. Peter was about to explain, but unexpectedly Kelly took a deep breath. I know, Peter, you must have been the person of fate who fell from the rain of fire many years ago. Right. Listening to the other party's irresponsible guess, Peter was silent. You are going against the will of heaven. How did I become my own son? You are wrong. I am a generation older than them. When he was about to say something, he suddenly felt a chill on his chest. He picked up Star-Lord and found that he had Pete on him. Seeing Peter's unskilled movements, Kelly hurried over and took Star-Lord from him. I really doubt how you raised John before, Peter. At night, Kelly's grandfather, Chief Joseph, came to the farm as promised. At the dinner table, the old chief said to everyone with great interest, legend has it that a man who came from the rain of fire fell in love with a woman we call the mother of the tribe, and then they had offspring, which is also the origin of our Kosh people. Peter put down his knife and fork and asked the other party, Mr. Joseph, do you know where he came from? I don't know. The story passed down by word of mouth does not have too many details. Some people say he came from another world, and some say it is from another planet. Peter nodded when he heard this, always feeling that this story was a bit far-fetched. Sir, will your statues come back to life by themselves? Azu next to him asked curiously. No, they don't have such ability, otherwise they wouldn't be used as firewood. After taking a sip of wine, he looked at Kelly who was sitting next to him. The granddaughter seemed to enjoy such a dinner. She smiled and looked at Peter for a while, and then turned her head to listen to him. The chief squinted his eyes and suddenly felt that the girl was too old to be kept. You are not a local, Peter, he suddenly asked Peter. The first day of 10,000 words is presented. I would like to ask for the recommendation votes and monthly votes from the readers. Thank you. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89, The Dark Wolf Girl and the Scared Clark. Actually, I'm a local, and this farm is inherited from my parents. Startled by the chief's meaningful gaze, Peter calmly put down his cutlery and said, You don't look like a local, Peter. Seeing that the atmosphere at the table was a bit strange, Kelly quickly tried to change the subject. My grandfather is an expert in ancient characters. I believe that my grandfather can decipher the characters in the caves, and maybe solve some puzzles. The chief looked at his granddaughter. The premise is that Luther doesn't flatten these caves. He thanked Peter again. Anyway, Peter, I have to thank you. If it weren't for you, that person would really do such a thing. Kelly asked curiously, Grandfather, do you know Leno Luther very well? I don't know him, but I know he is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Peter nodded slightly when he heard this and looked at Kelly. He didn't know whether Leno was a wolf in sheep's clothing, but there was a woman who was really in wolf's clothing. The next day, early in the morning, Star-Lord, sitting in a baby carriage, is concentrating on watching an advertisement on TV. A fully armed gunman is shooting with a 6-shooter. However, he is not shooting bullets, but cookies. Chocolate slices, shortbread and oatmeal are piled up around the gunman. The gunman stands frustratedly in a pile of cookies, with an empty gun shell, and says frustratedly, Alice, the bad guys are all gone. Then, with a high-pitched background music, the gunman's expression suddenly changes, and he faces the screen and says, I have cookies, the best cookies in the West, or even anywhere. Finally, after the gunman takes a bite of the cookie and shows a climax-like happy expression, the whole film gradually fades away. Peter looked at the silly commercial in silence, and asked Kelly who was cleaning up the dishes, You didn't give Star-Lord cookies, did you? Kelly, no, Star-Lord is just a baby, he's not suitable for cookies. Kelly glanced at Star-Lord who was obsessed with the commercial and continued, That's what you said, but I don't think Star-Lord is a baby who's not suitable for cookies. Are you referring to his weight? Kelly shook her head. No, not only weight and body shape, but also his current maturity. Peter asked puzzledly, What maturity? He seems to be able to speak. Kelly thought of the scene when she was taking care of him last night, when this naughty kid called her mom. Really? Peter looked at Star-Lord, who was staring at the TV and drooling. What did he say? Such words. How could Kelly, who had never experienced anything, have the nerve to say them? She could only make up a lie, he said, hungry. Hearing this, Peter looked at Star-Lord with surprise. Is he really a genius? At this moment, Star-Lord seemed to hear Peter and Carrie discussing him. After shifting his eyes away from the TV, he gave the two of them an innocent smile. Meanwhile, at Smallwood Elementary School, Zoo and Clark were sitting in front of the TV. It happened that a commercial for Sharp Cookies was playing on TV. This scene was already familiar to the children who watched Rabbit and Dragon every Saturday morning. Clark looked at the commercial on TV and said to Zoo, I think this kind of cookie should be delicious. I think you should be careful not to become like Star-Lord. Desserts are the most fattening food. Zoo thought he should persuade Clark that cookies should be consumed in moderation. Cocoa Bears, bran, and sharp whole grain meals, they sound like they are full of things that can make people fat. Zoo counted these foods that he thought were very dangerous. Dad said that these things can't be trusted, and sweets are the devil. Clark said confidently, I think the lack of self-control is the devil, and obviously, I am the one with self-control. No, you don't have self-control, Clark. You will be tempted by the devil. You are the one who will be tempted by the devil. Zoo, Clark responded tit for tat. In the afternoon, after school, Clark and Zoo were still arguing about who would be the one who would be easily corrupted. The two talked about the devil again. Clark, who was full of curiosity, asked Peter about the legend of the devil. Maybe Miss Kelly can explain to you. There are many legends about the devil and they're Indian legends. Peter kicked the two curious kids to Kelly. We are not Indians, Peter, Kelly said dissatisfiedly. We are the Khalchi people who live on this land. My mistake. Are there any legends about demons in your Khalchi people's legends? Or Wendigo? Bigfoot? Peter asked curiously. Or similar stories? There are two very curious children here. They want to hear strange stories. Do you really want to hear it? Kelly put Star-Lord on the child chair, coughed and asked the two. Peter looked at her face and always felt that this woman had bad intentions. Of course, the two brothers said in unison. Well, this is a horror story. A long time ago, a demon came to this town. He was not a werewolf, a vampire or a ghoul, nor was he some guy from the magic forest or the snow-covered wilderness. He was a demon named Dude. He killed many people, and the whole town was shrouded in his shadow, Kelly said in a low tone. Later, a man named John Smith discovered his name through a magic, but before he could catch him, Dude committed suicide. Is that over? Azu asked, scratching his head. Yes, the story ends here, but the nightmare about this demon remains. One day, he may be resurrected and take away the disobedient children. As she spoke, Kelly stretched out her hand, pretending to have sharp claws, and said seriously, he is there. When the wind whistles into the chimney pipe and the stove eye blocked by the old can light buzzes, he is there. If you don't be a good child, when everyone else in the house is asleep, it may be his face that you see from your bedroom window. Kelly deliberately made a low sob. Or, it may be his face that secretly stares at you from the closet in the middle of the night. Also, he will have a smile on his face. His left hand will hold the stop sign that children use to cross the road, and the other hand will hold the razor he uses to commit suicide. So, don't let him hear it. Azu and Clark were completely immersed in the vivid story told by Kelly. After looking at each other, Clark, who was more timid, held his breath nervously and dared not move. Although Zu knew that Kelly was probably talking nonsense, he was still pulled into Kelly's story. Well, the devil is dead, and Dude is rotting in his coffin, so don't worry about him coming to take you away. Peter came over and patted Clark and Zu on the shoulders, motioning them to wash their hands and prepare for dinner. After the two naughty kids left, Peter said to Kelly helplessly, I can't believe you like to play pranks, Miss Kelly. Prank? This is not a prank. There are similar stories in our tribe, really. Peter hugged Star-Lord and teased him for a while, then turned to Kelly and said, in my vague memory, my mother, or my grandmother, in order to calm me down, said that the devil in a black raincoat would take me away. That was an Enlightenment era when parents already knew that what they did and what they said might cause psychological harm to their children. Peter talked about his previous life, the vague memory of his childhood. Kelly poured herself a glass of water and shook her head. Clark and John, they won't be scared by the story I just told, and they won't be traumatized. They are not ordinary children, especially Zoo. Did you see his unbelieving expression just now? Peter shook his head. In fact, in some ways, they are ordinary children, He saw that this black-bellied wolf girl seemed to want to play a trick on Zhu because Zhu always said that she was Star-Lord's mother. Clark was unlucky to be implicated. Zhu was not scared, but he was scared. When he was about to continue discussing children's education with the wolf girl, the phone suddenly rang. After answering the phone, he said a few words to the other party and hung up with a serious face. "What's wrong?" Kelly looked at Peter with a frown and walked over to ask him. There was a homicide in the town. The deceased was a farmer. The police wanted to find the farmer in the town to understand the situation, Charles Boone's farm. This farm at the end of Smallville was surrounded by many police officers and residents. Peter and Kelly, who was holding Star-Lord, walked to the perimeter of the cordon. Noticing Peter's appearance, Officer Chandler immediately came over and set up a cordon for the two. Seeing Kelly holding the child, Chandler coughed and introduced himself to her. "I'm Chandler, miss, nice to meet you." He thought Kelly was Peter's new girlfriend, took a look at her delicate features and hot body, and said with some envy, "Peter is a lucky guy." Kelly nodded in agreement, but looking at Chandler's face, she soon understood what he meant. Does this guy think she is Peter's wife? She looked at Peter, and then looked at herself standing beside him holding the child. Well, this does look a bit like a couple. While she was struggling, Chandler took Peter to the scene. Looking at the body on the ground that had been torn into two pieces, and the wall stained red with blood, Peter frowned. What happened? As you can see, Charles Boone was torn in half. When did it happen? Peter looked down at the torn body and asked, is it just a murder? Or a robbery of the farm? We don't know yet. Chandler shook his head and said worriedly, because we don't know the murderer's motive. We called the Smallville farmer and told them to be careful recently. Maybe the murderer's purpose is to take the property on the farm. Some robbers like to attack the farmer. Peter nodded and bent down to check the wound of the dead. The wound seemed to be torn directly, not like an ordinary knife wound. He stood up and looked at the blood splashed on the wall like a painting with a serious expression. This didn't seem to be done by humans. Chapter 90. Either die as a hero or live to become a villain. Smallville Elementary School. With a bang, Zhu grabbed Whitney's clothes and slammed him against a locker. I said, don't get close to Clark. Grabbing the other's collar, Zhu threatened him unceremoniously, if you do it again, I will beat you up so hard that your parents won't recognize you. Whitney ran into Clark in the morning with a group of younger brothers. Whitney, who wanted to find trouble, knocked Clark to the ground, ridiculed him and left. After learning that Clark was bullied, Zhu immediately came to make trouble for Whitney. Shocked by Zhu's impressive momentum, Whitney did not fight back. Knowing that a good man would not suffer a loss in front of him, he raised his hands to indicate that he had no ill intentions. Hey, John, relax, it's nothing, I promise you, I won't make trouble for Clark again. Seeing Whitney's single surrender, Zhu immediately lost interest. Okay, remember what you said. Zhu loosened the man's collar, put him down and turned away. Whitney turned around, facing Zhu, and said in a faint voice that only he could hear, fuck, what did you say? Zhu, who had already left, suddenly stopped, then turned and walked towards him quickly. Whitney looked a little flustered, but quickly adjusted his mood and faced Zhu with a normal expression. I didn't say anything. Zhu, who pursed his lips and walked angrily, walked quickly to Whitney, slapped his neck, and pressed his head down. You, what did you say just now? Pressing Whitney's head down, Zhu's tone made Whit feel a chill. Frightened, he apologized to Zhu again and again. Sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Zhu pressed his head and ordered in an angry tone, say it. Bang! Whitney's school bag fell to the ground, and all the books inside were scattered on the ground. Regardless of the school bag on the ground, Whitney was pressed on his head and stood unsteadily, his body swaying from side to side. Trying to maintain his balance, he was frightened by the fierce Zhu and quickly begged for mercy. Sorry, I didn't mean it, please. Zhu grabbed the other's head, stared at him for a moment, and suddenly let go of him. Whitney took 2 steps back, swallowed hard, and looked at Zhu's back in shock. Was he bullied? He wanted to cry but had no tears. He didn't expect that he would be bullied one day. Thank you, John. Clark sincerely thanked Zhu when he learned that Zhu had gone to get back the face for him. Although he did not approve of using force against ordinary people, he was still very moved by Zhu's behavior of standing up for him. In fact, I was also very upset with him. Zhu said that after the physical education class, he had always wanted to beat this guy. It was just that he didn't find a suitable opportunity and was afraid that the school would find his parents, so he didn't do it. Anyway, since you helped me, I can treat you to a honey bar or maple bread." Clark generously expressed his desire to treat Zhu to a meal. Zhu waved his hand. "No, I'm not interested in your food. Even if you give me another box of sharp cookies, I'm not interested." Clark saw that Zhu seemed to be troubled. "You don't seem very happy, John." "No, I'm just probably what the teacher said about emotional instability, which everyone has several times a month." He didn't know why he had such a big temper just now. For a moment, he really wanted to break Whitney's hand. Although he knew that was not right. Clark put the book down and asked thoughtfully, "Is it about Miss Kelly and Star-Lord? You haven't been very happy since Miss Kelly moved in." "No, I'm not unhappy. Zhu didn't know how to explain. "I just don't want Dad to be cheated." Clark looked at him in surprise. "Do you think Miss Kelly is a liar?" "I didn't say that, but have you seen the news?" Zhu told Clark the news he saw. The oil tycoon divorced his wife, and his wife took away half of the property, about $5 billion. Well, this if is just my guess, but if it really happened," he paused and said in a serious tone, "Dad will give her half of the assets, and she will take half of the farm." Clark was stunned. He didn't expect Zhu to think so much. No, Miss Kelly is the granddaughter of the chief, and her tribe has a large piece of land to inherit. How could she care about Dad's farm?" Zhu adhered to the principle of strict investigation and took out a small notebook. "I asked Mr. Hanks to check for me at the library. The Colchi are still arguing with the state of Kansas and the federal government in court over who owns the land." Clark asked in surprise, "Aren't there any documents?" "Oh, there are." Zhu flipped through the small book, "but they are all too old. A long time ago, from the big maple tree standing on the mountain to the river, it all belonged to the original landowner. But in 1882 the big maple tree fell down, and by 1900 the tree had rotted away. Part of the river also became smaller due to the accumulation of mud, and after 10 years of changes, it became a swamp. As a result, the land ownership issue became a mess." Clark felt more and more strange the more he listened. Why does Zhu feel that Zhu is becoming more and more like a farmer? And he is a very professional one. Could it be that Zhu really doesn't want to go to college in the future? So, Zhu didn't know what Clark was thinking, and continued, "So think about the future. When the fat guy Star-Lord grows up, if he is a prodigal, Dad's farm will definitely suffer a catastrophe." Clark thought about it and felt that the logic was not right. "John, you are just predicting the worst," Zhu said confidently. "How do you know that the worst will not happen?" "I am preparing for a rainy day." Clark hesitated, and finally looked him in the eye and said, "I know why you think so, John." Zhu was stunned. "What? You are just afraid that the Godfather's love for you will be divided, right?" Zhu, whose thoughts were exposed, closed the notebook in anger. "No, I am not. My father loves me, and he will not be divided by anyone. I just want to help." "Really?" Clark knew Zhu very well and always knew what he was thinking. "John, didn't the Godfather say that we were born with a certain mission? Maybe our future is not just the farm. We can set our sights on the metropolis, or even a bigger place." Clark didn't understand why Zhu is always obsessed with a farm dream. After hearing this, Zhu looked at Clark in surprise. He didn't expect Clark to tell some truths like his father. "You hate the farm, Clark." "No, I want to stay on the farm, but I also hope to help more people." "You're wrong, Clark. You've never understood what your father said." Zhu's expression became serious. He said to Clark unhappily, "You want to be a good person and go out into the world to help others. It's impossible. Because you were not born a normal person, people will never accept you, only the farm will accept you. It's your eternal home. No, one day people will." "Dream on." Zhu's voice rose a little, attracting the attention of the whole class. Stared at by Clark's stunned eyes, he took a deep breath and calmed down. "Remember the movie The Fugitive we watched? The policeman in it said, either die as a hero, or live until you become a villain. Clark, in the eyes of people, you will always become bad. I will never become bad, unless you die." Realizing that he was a little emotional and said something he shouldn't have said, Zhu felt a little regretful when he looked at Clark's shocked face. But he didn't apologize, but packed up his school bag and left the classroom directly. On the way back, Zhu felt a little regretful. He was clearly talking about the farm with Clark, but how did it end up as an argument? He shook his arms, exhaled in frustration, and looked at the students walking in front of him. Lana was going home with her classmates. Her best friend talked to her about the latest campus legend. It is said that in the prayer room of the dilapidated and abandoned church in the town, there is a legend that if you go there before midnight to make a wish, Your wish will come true. Using super hearing, Azu secretly heard the other party's conversation and stopped. Make a wish. You can make a wish without using the monkey's paw and without the need for a meteor shower? He expressed serious doubts about this. After hearing what her best friend said, Lana also shook her head to express her disbelief. How is it possible? Is there a holy grail in the prayer room? Who knows? Some people say there is a magical power in it, and some people say there is a devil in it. As long as you sign a contract with him, he can help you realize a wish. Lana shuddered when she heard this. That must cost a lot. I don't want to. Hearing this, Azu had an idea in his mind. I heard Kelly talk about a devil called Dude in the town before. Could it be that it was not made up by Kelly, but really existed? Azu stood there, took a deep breath, and looked at his outstretched palm. In his eyes, the palm gradually turned into a monkey's paw. He gently clenched his fingers, and a finger of the monkey's paw slowly clasped it. Shaking his head, he looked at his palm again. The imaginary monkey's paw had disappeared, and the palm was restored to its original state. Putting his hand down, he looked at the church northwest of Smallwood town. Late at night, Azu, lying on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the clock on the wall. The hour hand pointed to 12 o'clock. Gently getting off the bed, Azu put on his clothes and opened the door. Walking to the window in the corridor, after confirming that no one was paying attention to him, he jumped out of the window and hung in the air. After looking at the farm, Azu took a deep breath and flew towards the church with a whoosh. Boom. 1 minute later, his feet landed on the ground, and Azu looked at the dilapidated and desolate church in front of him. In the dark night, the church stood in the deserted wilderness, exuding a gloomy atmosphere, giving people a strong sense of uneasiness, as if it would turn into a beast that would devour people at any time. Azu hesitantly pushed open the door of the church and entered the church covered with dust and cobwebs. The wooden chairs in the church were almost all broken, and the decorations on the walls were almost falling off. Stepping on the dust on the ground, Azu walked into the prayer room of the church. In the spacious room, there was nothing except a mirror. Standing in the room and searching for a while, he did not find anything suspicious. There was no holy grail, and no devil who could sign a contract suddenly jumped out. After searching for a few more minutes and making sure that there was nothing valuable, he was disappointed and prepared to leave the church. But unexpectedly, the moment he turned around to leave, Azu suddenly found something wrong. He stopped and looked at himself in the mirror with an unbelievable look. Chapter 91 Dad, I am your sharpest spear. He took a step forward, but found that the person in the mirror was motionless, looking at himself with interest. Who are you? Azu took a step back in shock and looked at himself in the mirror. I am you, Azu. Don't you even recognize yourself? Azu in the mirror showed himself and turned around for him to see. Look, we are almost the same. I am you. You are not me. I am the real me. Azu's eyes turned red, and the laser accumulated in his eyes seemed to shoot towards the person in the mirror in the next second. Who are you? Okay, don't be so serious. Azu in the mirror raised his hand. Maybe I am just an idea in your mind, a devil in your heart, who can say for sure? The important thing is that I can help you, John. I am not your enemy. Help me. Yes, help you. Isn't the purpose of your coming here to make a wish come true? Wish. Azu lowered his head and repeated the word. Yes, you need to look at your heart clearly. You are afraid. You are afraid of losing, John. You are afraid of losing your father's love. This scares you. You said that your courage is greater than fear, but now, fear is devouring you, as if the person in the mirror had said it. Azu's eyes gradually became dazed. No, this is not true. Dad will not abandon me. His love for me will not be divided. Azu in the mirror sneered. Don't deceive yourself, John. You know better than anyone else that this is inevitable. No, Azu had the urge to cry, but tried hard to hold it back. Admit it, John, a part of your deepest heart is the god of death. You saw that world, the closed laboratory, the cruel and inhumane experiments, no family, no father, just a cold laboratory, and you were trapped there alone, like a stranded whale, being slaughtered. Azu tried hard to hold back his tears. It was just a dream. A dream? Have you ever experienced such a real dream? Maybe, that is the life you are experiencing now, or your original life. John, you must not want to experience the feeling in the dream. Azu shook his head, his eyes full of tears. No, I don't want to. That's it, John, I can help you realize your wish. Take back your father's love from your brother, and prevent him from appearing again, and no longer snatching what belongs to you. Azu in the mirror took a step closer to him. Then you can finally become the one who monopolizes your father, my child. What should I do? Azu suppressed his tears and asked the other party. It's very simple. I can help you get rid of your brother and make your father stop suspecting you, but the premise is that you have to pay a price. What price? Your soul, my soul. Azu was stunned for a moment, and his fuzzy mind suddenly became clear. That means you have to remove a part of me from my body. Yes, don't you want to? You will gain and lose. This is fairness and the price. Don't you understand this the most? Azu's originally shaken heart suddenly calmed down, and Peter's words to him rang in his mind. He looked up at the other party and asked, are you going to take away my faith? What? No, it's impossible. I said I didn't have faith before, but I actually have faith. When my father took me to Louis' funeral for the first time, I had faith. Do you know what it is? Azu in the mirror looked at Azu, whose temperament suddenly changed and was stunned. What is it? My faith follows my father. If I don't have a soul, it will disappear, and then I can't keep up with my father's footsteps. Azu's eyes changed from the previous confusion. You're right. You are just another projection of my inner self, a dark and sinful me. I don't like Star-Lord, but I don't want him to disappear, because my father wouldn't want me to do that. Azu stared at himself in the mirror and continued, Mr. Jones taught me to defeat the other self in my heart. Now, I have done it. Wait, don't you understand? I'm not you. I'm the one who made a deal with you. You are. I'm not. You are. I'm not. Shut up. Azu in the mirror, with his hands flat on his temples, was a little broken. You are me. I defeated myself, and I have to tell my father about this. Azu was a little scared and proud at the same time. If he hadn't thought of his father waking up just now, he would have turned evil. Is this his inner demon? But he has defeated it, so he doesn't need to be afraid of it anymore. After determining that the person in the mirror was another self, Azu was ready to turn around and leave. Seeing that Azu was about to leave, Azu in the mirror immediately turned into countless black shadows and pounced on him. Seeing that the other party was about to fly out of the mirror, Azu, who was a little confused, quickly reacted and immediately activated his laser eyes and shot at the mirror. As he swept across, the mirrors in the whole room were shattered. A crashing sound was heard, and the shadow flying out disappeared at the moment the mirror was shattered. Azu, who used his laser eyes to shatter the mirror, stared at the mirror fragments on the ground in amazement. The scene just now made him a little unable to react. The thing in the mirror was actually real. Is this a demon? He suddenly thought of the story of the devil dude told by Kelly. Was he talking to the devil just now? And he almost made a deal with the devil? Thinking of this, Azu, who was fearless, felt a little cold all over his body and hurriedly left the church as quickly as possible. After flying back to the farm, Azu tiptoed to go upstairs. With a click, the light switch was turned on. Azu's movement stopped immediately, and he looked at Peter sitting on the sofa with a corner of his eyes. The air stagnated for a moment, and Peter's voice came to him. John, turning around, Azu took a deep breath and walked to Peter nervously. Dad, it's 12 o'clock in the night now. You just came back from outside. John, can you tell me what you did just now? Peter knew that the other party probably went to the suburbs, but he still pretended to be ignorant. Sorry, Dad, I was seduced by a devil. Azu did not hide it and said dejectedly. The devil seduced. Hearing the other party's words, Peter was stunned. Did this kid go to the wild to have a tryst with a little girl? How old is this kid, and he dares to do this? Peter, whose expression kept changing, wanted to kick him right away. Who seduced you? Who did you learn these things from? Peter asked with a threatening face. I don't know. It was probably the devil dude who tempted me. As for who taught me, it was probably you, Dad, and Mr. Jones? Anyway, you usually teach me. Azu continued with a bitter face. I heard him talking and felt dizzy for no reason. Peter was stunned for a moment, knowing that he was probably thinking wrongly. He coughed twice and asked the other party, what happened? Tell me in detail. Okay, Dad. Azu then told him the scene in the church in full. Of course. He concealed the fact that he was almost convinced by the other party. After listening, Peter was speechless for a long time. Dad has indeed neglected you during this period. Peter reflected on himself. It's my fault. He stood up and patted Azu's shoulder. Dad formally apologizes to you. Peter apologized to him, but Azu was a little at a loss. Dad, I'm also wrong. I shouldn't have gone out so late and almost got into trouble, Azu said in a depressed mood. I always mess up everything. Actually, I'm not as bad as I said, Dad. I was almost persuaded by him. I was very scared. Those things in the dream kept haunting me. I was afraid of being dragged down by them, just like being dragged into the gloomy river bottom by a water ghost. Dad, I'm afraid of losing. Azu raised his head and looked at him helplessly. I'm more afraid of hurting you. No, you won't. Peter hugged Azu to comfort him. He could probably guess what Azu was afraid of. Because he often dreamed of the unbearable scenes in the Black Robe world, he always had a sense of fear and insecurity in his heart. He was afraid of being abandoned like in the dream and not being loved by everyone. Dad swears to you, what you are afraid of will never happen. No matter what time it is, Dad will be behind you, he comforted him. Dad will be your backer, John. Azu blinked and said firmly, then I will always be Dad's sharpest spear. The next day, early in the morning, Kelly hugged Star-Lord and looked at Peter in surprise. Do you really believe what Zeus said, and believe that there is a devil? Peter put down the newspaper that had just been delivered to him. Isn't that what you said? Dude's devil. Kelly shook her head. That's just a rumor. In fact, Dude was a serial killer named Frank Dude, so it doesn't exist at all. I think it's most likely a story made up by John. Kelly expressed her own opinion. You want to find such a devil? I think it's almost impossible. Peter put down the newspaper in surprise. As the granddaughter of the chief, don't you believe in the existence of devils or angels? There is no legend of devils in our tribe. Kelly thought for a while and said, maybe you can look for that Mexican woman. You mean Ms. Nancy? Yes, doesn't she have the ability of divination and psychic? And she can see pictures that ordinary people can't see. Yeah, Peter nodded. He could ask the Mexican woman about the origin of this devil. Half an hour later, Peter stood in front of a house. White curbstones, energy-saving lights, a mailbox next to lush lilacs, and bright white rain gutters. He knocked on the door, but no one answered. Frowning, he pushed the door. With a creak, the unlocked door was pushed open. The room was dim, with various knitted accessories hanging. A rancid, unconcealed smell entered his nose. Following the smell, he walked to the second floor and opened a room near the corridor. There were burning candles on the counter in the room, and a magic circle was drawn in the middle of the room. In the center of the magic circle, a body was lying on it. The body was face down, and the blood on the back of the head had already coagulated into a clot. Peter took 2 steps forward and walked to the front of the body. Looking at the body shape of the female corpse, he compared it with the photo in the frame outside and confirmed that the other party was Ms. Nancy he was looking for. Is she dead? Looking at the body in front of him, he fell into deep thought. It seems that the other party was killed when he was using the magic circle to summon creatures. The magic circle in front of him looked familiar. He remembered that there was a similar magic circle in the priest's magic book. 3 chapters and 10,000 words. Please give me monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Thank you very much. Chapter 92, The Dark and Gambling Azu. Padrick Farm. Peter took out the magic book that had been put aside before, compared it, and soon determined what type of magic circle Ms. Nancy drew. The summoning magic circle can summon hell creatures and sign a contract with them to obtain extraordinary power. But the host himself may be backfired by hell creatures at any time. Closing the magic book, Peter frowned and fell into deep thought. Could it be that Ms. Nancy's psychic skills were obtained by signing a contract with the devil of hell? Then, is her death related to the backfire of hell creatures? After a while, he shook his head with some regret, threw the magic book on the table, and stood up to look out the window. It's a pity that I don't understand magic. It would be great if I had a magician by my side. The night fell, and the whole farm began to be gradually surrounded by darkness. The next day, early morning, after Clark got on the school bus, he looked at the back seat. Lana was sitting alone in the back seat, supporting her chin with her hand and looking out the window, looking immature and beautiful. Not far from Lana, Azu was sitting alone. After hesitating for a while, between Lana and Azu, Clark finally chose to walk to the empty seat next to Azu and sat down. Clark sat down, glanced at Lana quickly, and then looked straight ahead. Although he had some conflicts with Azu yesterday, he had reconciled with Azu in the morning with the intervention of the Godfather. Even though he still didn't agree with Azu's extreme views. You should sit over there, Clark. Azu's observation ability was very sharp, and he saw Clark's little move at once. Clark put his school bag in front of him a little embarrassedly and whispered, I prefer to be with you. I mean, I don't have any experience with Lana. As he spoke, he quickly glanced at Lana again, as if he was afraid that his words would be heard by the other party. Azu felt that Clark was obviously speaking with a double-minded heart. "You are lying, Clark. You obviously don't have the courage." "No, of course I have the courage, but this has nothing to do with courage." Clark's tone of voice was a little lacking in momentum. Azu felt that he had to encourage Clark and let him take the first step. After so long in school, Clark seemed to have not taken the initiative to talk to Lana. "Haven't you watched the recent romantic TV series, Clark?" The protagonist in it said, "Love is a flower growing on the edge of a cliff. If you want to pick it, you have to have some courage." Clark was a little confused. He didn't expect Azu to know all this. But he quickly explained with a blushing face, "This is not love, John. I just think Lana is a very nice person." But his words sounded to Azu just like a baby not liking to drink breast milk, which was not convincing. Azu rolled his eyes and gave Clark some advice. "Indeed, there are many good girls in this world. I believe your reasons, Clark, but if you want to talk to her, you have to take a brave step. If you take the initiative to sit next to her and say hello to her, it's a good choice." No. Clark waved his hands excitedly, and then said frustratedly, "I'm too nervous." Azu patted Clark's shoulder. "You will never have a chance if you don't try. Really, I believe you will succeed." "Okay." Clark finally mustered up the courage, stood up and walked towards Lana. When Clark walked towards Lana sitting by the window, Azu patted the black student in the front row, Sam Jones. He said to Sam proudly, "I guess 5 steps, the bet is $5. Sam looked at Clark with stiff steps and said confidently, "I guess 7 steps, my luck has always been good." The two were betting on how many steps Clark will fall if he approaches Lana. 1, 2, 3, as the two counted numbers quietly, Clark's steps became more and more stable. A smile appeared on his lips, and he repeated the words he had said to Lana several times in his mind. 5. Just when Azu counted to 5, Clark's feet suddenly softened, and he fell flat on his face, his body falling forward uncontrollably. With a bang, Clark fell in front of Lana's seat in a mess. His school bag fell to the ground, and the books inside were thrown out and scattered at Lana's feet. The sudden sound attracted the attention of all the students in the school bus. Seeing Clark's embarrassed appearance, everyone burst into laughter. Lana saw Clark falling in front of her and hurriedly helped him pick up the book. Picking up a thick book, Lana felt a little magical when she saw Nietzsche written on it. She didn't expect Clark to like reading Nietzsche at such a young age. Well, although she is about the same age as him. "Are you okay, Clark?" Lana handed him the Nietzsche book and asked with a concerned tone. "Yes, I'm fine." Clark was so embarrassed that he wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. How could he have the confidence to strike up a conversation at the beginning? On the other side, Zhu snatched $5 from Sam. "Looks like I won." Seeing that Zhu had easily won his pocket money, Sam said unconvincedly, "I was just unlucky. I will definitely win next time." Clark didn't know at this time that Zhu and Sam had used his embarrassing story as a bet. After Clark escaped, Zhu and Sam looked at each other and saw each other's expression of trying hard to hold back laughter. "Smell will school." Zhu comforted Clark, who was in a bad mood. "It's just a failure. Maybe you will succeed next time." In order to continue to earn Sam's pocket money, he encouraged Clark. Clark, who didn't know he was cheated, thanked Zhu gratefully. "Thank you, John." "You're welcome, Clark. We are brothers, aren't we?" The two walked forward while talking. When they walked near the flower bed, they saw a group of girls surrounding a girl. Clark recognized this as a 5th grade classmate, Allison Mack. He had seen this girl near Lana's house. Allison was a little fat and had acne on her face. Because her body was soaked, her wet hair was limp and stuck to her face, without any luster. She just stood there, her head slightly lowered, letting the water hit her body and the water droplets roll down, looking like a sacrificial lamb. The senior girls who surrounded her laughed and splashed the water in their cups on her. "Hey, what are you doing?" Seeing the bad behavior of these girls, Clark's blood pressure immediately surged, and he shouted at them, "Stop it!" Hearing Clark's voice, several people looked over. Clark walked in front of them and glared at the guys who behaved badly. "This is none of your business, kid. If you don't want to get into trouble, get out of here." Being stared at by Clark, who was a head shorter than her, with angry eyes, several senior girls were embarrassed and threatened them one after another. Seeing Clark in trouble, Zhu immediately stood beside Clark and said to the girls, "If you want to fight, I can try." Although the other party was a woman, Zhu said that if the other party was not tactful, he would not mind hitting a woman. Several senior girls who knew Zhu whispered to each other, glared at Clark fiercely, and then turned away. "Are you okay?" After the bad girls from the senior class left, Clark asked the girl who fell to the ground in a mess. "I'm fine, thank you, Allison," who was shaking slightly, thanked Clark gratefully. After Allison left, Zhu looked at her back and said, "You shouldn't care, Clark." "Why don't you care?" Clark didn't understand why Zhu said that. Bullying between girls is different from bullying between boys. "You helped her this time, but I think she will be bullied even harder next time," Clark asked puzzledly. "How do you know?" "I just know. I also know her name is Allison Mack, and I've heard of her." Zhu shrugged and said, "It seems that everyone here likes to bully her. They hide snakes in her shoes, push her into the water, pinch her, stretch their legs and trip her in the school corridor, and knock books off her desk, and so on." And the most recent time was when she fell asleep in the classroom and her classmates smeared peanut butter on her hair. Listening to the girl's experience, Clark felt a little uncomfortable. Why would those people do this? Dad said that people will have a destructive mentality towards things they hate or don't understand. Clark listened to Zhu's words and exhaled. He thought of the quarrel between him and Zhu yesterday. Don't they have sympathy? Zhu thought for a moment. Maybe not. Dad said humans never feel the same way. Allison, who had been walking away from the two people's conversation, suddenly stopped and took out a broken lens from her school bag with a blank look in her eyes. She held the lens tightly, and the blood from her cut palm slowly flowed into it. "Night. Smallville Salon Club. Todd," Officer Chandler said, tapping the edge of the glass, "I need you to put another Long Island iced tea into this damn wine, and this time, you have to mix this wine to a higher level before giving it to me. Todd is the bartender in this restaurant." "No problem," he said as he walked over to prepare to mix Chandler's drink. Peter, who was sitting next to him, looked at the bartender mixing the drink and asked him, "Has the police found out the cause of Charles Boone's death?" Charles Boone was the farmer whose body was cut in two before. "No, it's not clear yet." Chandler shook his head. "His wounds do not look like they were caused by humans. It seems like he was torn apart alive. There are many suspicious points. In addition, we investigated his financial situation. His farm was in a big debt crisis. Although I don't know why the murderer attacked him, one thing I can be sure of now is that the purpose of the perpetrator should not be for money." Peter nodded. "Do you have any clues about Ms. Nancy's death?" "No, there are no clues. There are no traces at the scene. It's as if she was killed out of thin air." Chandler put down his glass and looked at Peter suspiciously. "To be honest, I'm a little surprised. Why did you discover Ms. Nancy's death?" "I just wanted to go to her for divination," Peter explained, and after casually glancing at the door, his brows immediately frowned. Chapter 93, Bar Demon Fight. As Peter was watching, a burly figure pushed open the door of the bar and walked in. He was wearing khaki dark pants and a North Carolina hat, with dark pupils and a strange aura. "Whatever, you are full of mystery, I'm used to it." Officer Chandler didn't notice the strange look in Peter's eyes. Also, the bartender had mixed him a bit too strong, making him a bit drunk. "I don't care about anything. I just want to get some money before I retire so that I can go to Hawaii for vacation after I retire and leave this bad town. Everything here is bad." He looked at the decorations on the wall of the bar with a little tipsy and complained, "Look, pretentious nonsense, road signs, artificial retro style, a damn paddle, a paddle. What can a paddle be related to? I don't know, maybe it's used to intimidate those annoying customers." Bang! Peter put the glass on the table and said to him, "I think you are drunk. You'd better go to the bathroom." "Bathroom? Why?" Chandler looked at him with a slightly surprised expression. I'm not drunk at all," but soon he knew why Peter asked him to go to the bathroom. At the door of the bar, several truck drivers were playing cards around a table. There was a large jug with foam on the table. Some of the sturdy drivers were playing cards, while others were wandering around the pool table. In the jukebox near the big water pitcher, the Iron Butterfly Band was singing loudly, "In the Garden of Heaven, Baby." As the music played, the man with a North Carolina hat and dark pupils walked towards Peter step by step. When he walked near several truck drivers who were playing billiards, he accidentally touched the body of a driver. The sturdy driver was pulling the cue back hard at this time, sticking his head out to aim at the target ball to hit. Coincidentally, when the man with the North Carolina hat walked past him, he accidentally hit his cue. As a result, the cue slipped on the tablecloth and pushed the cue ball right into the bottom pocket. The driver who washed the cue ball immediately looked at the man with an angry face. "You bastard, you made me foul." The man who was scolded by the truck driver seemed not to hear it and continued to walk forward. Seeing his arrogant action, the truck driver immediately grabbed his clothes and said, "I'm going to beat you to pulp." However, before the truck driver could do anything, the North Carolina man grabbed his neck and threw him to the ground like a chicken. With a bang, the driver's back smashed the chair on the ground. The sudden and violent noise attracted the attention of everyone in the bar. The other drivers who were playing cards and chatting were all stunned. No one expected that things would develop like this. The sturdy driver was subdued in an instant. And because the opponent was too fast, they didn't see how the man made the move. "Damn it, fuck. Kill him." After a moment of stunned silence, the drivers hugged each other and immediately attacked the North Carolina man. The chaotic situation in the bar began. The fat driver raised his club and smashed it at the opponent. With a clang, the fat man's club broke into two pieces on the man's head. The man who was attacked, however, looked at him with his dark eyes as if nothing had happened. With just one glance, the fat driver felt that his soul was about to be sucked away by the man in front of him. The man in the North Carolina hat said nothing, but stretched out his hand at lightning speed and grabbed the fat man's throat. Crack! The fat driver felt a pain in his throat and his neck was instantly broken. The other truck driver stood up, holding his forehead which was aching slightly, but was knocked down by his companion's body the next second. With a bang, he fell to the ground again after being knocked unconscious, and his shoulder pressed against one end of the table, causing the other end to tilt up like a seesaw. The stunned officer Chandler felt a flash of cold light, and then saw a truck driver pull out a knife from his waist. Everything happened so quickly and so slowly, and Chandler felt dizzy. He was already half drunk and half awake at this moment. The man who waved the knife at the North Carolina had not only failed to stab him, but was grabbed by the throat by his claws. With the sound of flesh being cut, the truck driver's throat was directly torn open by the claws. Blood spurted out like a fountain. The pungent smell of blood quickly filled the entire bar. The other frightened truck drivers immediately stopped attacking and took a step back in fear. After seeing such a bloody scene, the other customers in the bar screamed and rushed to the exit of the bar. The truck drivers who were stunned in place did not care about revenge for their accomplices, and followed the crowd to escape to the door of the bar at the fastest speed. Chandler swallowed his saliva and shook his drunken head. With his adrenaline soaring, he subconsciously wanted to draw his gun to deal with the weirdo in front of him. But when he touched his waist, his heart suddenly clicked. It was off work time, and he didn't bring a gun at all. Fuck! After cursing inwardly, he was hesitating whether to flee the bar quickly or get under the table. Unexpectedly, the weirdo walked straight towards him. In a hurry, he didn't care about Peter and laid his head on the bar, pretending to be unconscious. "Peter Patrick," the weirdo walked to Peter and made a hoarse sound while looking at him. The other party's voice was rough and hoarse, trembling and swaying, from bass to treble, like the tines of a fork passing through a stone slab. At the same time, a new, pungent smell permeated the air. "Who are you?" Peter frowned and looked at this guy of unknown origin. "Aren't you very clear about it? You are looking for me, looking for a devil, and that is me." The weirdo looked at Peter. "What a delicious soul, so unique. I can't wait to enjoy you." Peter glanced at Chandler who was pretending to faint, and asked the weirdo, "Are you the devil in the mirror in the church, playing tricks? Deceiving children?" Hearing a bit of contempt in Peter's words, the devil didn't care. "This is just part of the plan, not some deception or trick. Peter, whether it is you or your sons, your souls are so unique. Originally, my target was the entire city, but now I have changed my mind." Peter still sat in the chair without moving. He picked up a wine glass and tasted the red wine and black tea mixed by Chandler. "So you killed everyone in this town, right? Charles Boone, and Ms. Nancy?" The devil looked at him in surprise. "They signed a contract with me, and then paid some price. Isn't that what they should do? This is the price of making a wish. They all want to get something, wealth, talent. I gave it to them, and they gave me what I wanted. It's fair, isn't it? I heard that demons are eloquent. So I would rather believe that this is a trap you set." Peter asked the other party, "Now, you know my name. To be fair, I have to know your name, am I right?" The devil looked at Peter in surprise. "Your shamelessness is the same as a guy named Constantine I know. If you know the name of a demon, that demon will be in trouble. You should know this, so you are pretending to be stupid and trying to deceive me, right? You are so cunning, Peter. But I choose to forgive you, Now, he took a step towards Peter. Next, I will enjoy your delicious soul first, and then enjoy the souls of your sons, Peter sneered after hearing the other party's threat. You can try. Bang! Without waiting for the other party to react, Peter suddenly stood up, moved in front of the other party at lightning speed, and punched out. Even if it was just a test of force, it instantly knocked the demon away. The demon slammed into the wall on one side of the bar, and the terrifying force caused the wall to suddenly have cracks, and dust and brick debris fell down. Do you know how I will deal with a demon like you who is targeting my child? Peter walked over and looked down at the demon lying on the ground. I will grind you into powder. Even if you escape to hell, I will go down and catch you with my own hands. The demon who fell to the ground after being hit by Peter did not get angry, but took a breath and slowly stood up. I am really surprised, Peter Patrick, you are far beyond my expectations, really. Peter grabbed his clothes and threw him out of the glass window directly. With a bang, the other party's body shattered the glass and fell heavily on the open space dozens of meters away. Bang! Peter jumped out of the bar in a flash, and when he was about to continue attacking the opponent, he didn't expect the demon's counterattack to hide him at this moment. With a bang, the demon, who moved like lightning, hit Peter's chest hard and knocked him out. The powerful force, coupled with the terrifying speed, soon made Peter realize that the demon in front of him was not an ordinary devil in hell. After knocking Peter away, the demon immediately rushed into the sky, and his eyes quickly located the figure of Peter who was knocked away. With a bang, the demon instantly flew to the direction where Peter was knocked away, and when he was parallel to Peter who was flying backwards, he aimed at his neck and grabbed it with a claw. In the process of Peter's backward impact, he adjusted his posture and narrowly missed the opponent's hand. Then the demon retreated and punched Peter in the chest. With a bang, Peter, who was hit, fell heavily to the ground, splashing a large piece of dust. Regardless of the pain in his body, he quickly stretched out his palm in the face of the opponent to continue to fly over. The energy of the power of the gods condensed in his palm was instantly released on the demon's face. Boom! This blow was like a 155 caliber high-yield artillery shell, directly blowing the demon away. Not only the demon, but also the surrounding buildings suffered the shock wave generated by the explosion. The glass shattered, the entire structure shook violently, and the deafening sound spread around along with the shock wave. The demon that was blown away fell directly on the road, instantly smashing a big hole in the concrete floor. Without waiting for the smoke to disperse, Peter moved to the front of the pit at super speed, and saw a man in the pit with blood on his face and no breath of life. Obviously, the demon has left the host body and fled from here. Hearing the sirens of police cars in the distance, Peter took a look at the body in the pit and turned to walk towards the bar. The only one left in the bar was Chandler, who was still pretending to sleep. Peter walked to the guy who was still pretending to sleep and poured himself a glass of wine. Officer Chandler, I guess. You must be asleep now, right? Chapter 94. You be my shield, I be your spear, let us fight together. In the bar, Chandler, lying on the table, had his heart beating thump-thump, as if there were 10,000 alpacas running through his heart. He never expected that as soon as he stepped out of the bar, he would see Peter fighting an exaggerated battle with the devil, and even killed the devil in less than a few rounds. He had only seen such things in movies and comics. Chandler, who was under great pressure, hurried back to the bar as fast as he could and continued to pretend to be unconscious in his original position. However, what he didn't expect was that Peter, this mysterious and scary guy, actually walked back into the bar after killing the devil, and now he was right in front of him, staring at him. Because of fear, his body couldn't help but tremble slightly, and from the outside, it looked like he had a nightmare. Damn it. Calm down. I must pretend to be unconscious and not reveal any flaws. If he finds out anything, he will definitely kill me. Damn it. I just want to live a peaceful life until I retire to Hawaii, and I don't want to get involved in anything. Things like demons and supermen, let those more responsible policemen deal with them. Why did I encounter them? During the trembling and long-lasting waiting, Peter, who had been silent all the time, suddenly shook his head and said, maybe he really fell asleep, and then turned and left. Chandler didn't dare to raise his head tremblingly until Peter's footsteps completely disappeared. He breathed a sigh of relief and fear, and a storm was set off in his heart. What kind of monster is Peter? At the same time, the residents near the bar also came out tremblingly. Due to the cover of the night and the fast movement, no one saw Peter's face. Looking at the fight on the ground, the residents were all in a daze. Could it be that some monster appeared in Smallville? On the other side, Peter, standing on the street, watched a large number of police cars driving towards the salon club. Of course he knew Chandler was awake. The reason why he didn't expose him was because he knew that the other party was a master of pretending to be confused. However, staring at the messy scene in the distance, his expression became solemn. The devil will probably not give up after escaping this time. If an alien spaceship landed a baby with magic, it would not be so troublesome to deal with this kind of demon. After thinking about it for a while, he turned and left. The next day, at breakfast. "Dad, you said that we should take a leave temporarily." Azu looked at Peter in surprise. "Yes, not only you, but also Clark. You all have to take a leave to stay at the farm for the next 2 days." "Why?" Azu asked in confusion. "Did something happen?" "I guess Kelly next to him helped Star-Lord remove the food residue from his mouth and said to Peter, "It has something to do with what happened in the salon club last night, right, Dad? Did you do that?" Azu looked at Peter in surprise. He also heard about what happened in the salon club last night. "No, of course it wasn't me, it was that demon, although I killed his physical body." Peter put down the tableware and said to the two, "But he won't disappear easily. He is very interested in your soul, John, so for your safety, you must stay at home." Hearing Peter say that the other party is interested in his soul, Azu nodded depressedly. "Okay, Dad, I'll stay home." After taking 2 bites of fried eggs, Azu suddenly thought of something. "Dad, there's an activity at school today." "What activity?" "Choir activity," Azu said excitedly. "Dad, I'm also a member of the choir, and so is Clark. We have a rehearsal tonight, the first rehearsal." "You don't seem to have mentioned this, John." Peter's eyebrows moved. "Because I used to be a reserve member, but Miss Catherine agreed to let us join today." "You like singing, John?" Peter had never realized before that this kid also liked singing. He felt that compared to singing, Azu was most suitable for giving speeches. In his previous life, he had heard many speeches by this kid. In coordination with the enthusiastic audience, Azu excitedly clenched his fist and shouted, "God bless America." Even he would be infected by this enthusiastic atmosphere. "No, actually, I don't like it very much." Zu shook his head. "I just hope Dad won't feel embarrassed." Peter asked in confusion. "Embarrassment? Why would I feel embarrassed? John, you can't sing well, should it be you who is embarrassed?" "No, Dad, what I mean is that if other parents sit down and watch their children perform during the Thanksgiving holiday show, you will definitely feel embarrassed if Clark and I don't have any performances." Peter didn't expect that Zu was talking about embarrassment in this way. He was touched and gently touched Zu's head. "So, John, you think it would be a pity if you don't go to the rehearsal, right?" "Yes, Dad." Peter picked up the coffee and put it down gently. "Maybe we can go to your choir rehearsal together, me, Kelly, and Star-Lord." Zu, who was a little depressed, immediately became excited when he heard that Peter was rehearsing his own show, but he quickly calmed down. "But, Dad, didn't you say we have to be careful of demons?" "I think," Peter looked at Zu, "compared to the threat of demons, no parent wants to miss their child's first time." In the evening, Smallville Elementary School. As the Thanksgiving Festival Gala was approaching, almost all the students stayed in school to participate in the show rehearsal. Peter held Star-Lord and sat in the seat in the school auditorium. Kelly and Zu sat next to him. Clark and his parents also came to the scene to watch their son's rehearsal performance. After Clark greeted Peter, he looked for Lena on the scene. But after searching for a long time, he didn't see Lena, so he had to sit down honestly with a depressed look. Teacher Martha McConaughey took the initiative to come over to greet Peter. The youthful and beautiful Teacher Martha's dress attracted many people's attention. Peter stood up and shook his hand. "You look absolutely stunning today, Mr. McConaughey." "What's the secret?" "The secret is that I'm Don McLean's secret lover." "Don McLean, American folk singer from New York." Martha smiled and joked with Peter. But when she saw Kelly holding Star-Lord next to Peter, her expression changed slightly. She said a few more pleasantries to Peter and left in a hurry. When Martha McConaughey left, the rehearsal of the show was about to begin. "What's the first show?" Peter asked Zu. Zu scratched his head and said, "I don't know. I remember it should be a play, soon." The announcer announced that the first rehearsal show was a clip from Hamlet, performed by 5th grade students Erica Durns and Anne O'Toole. As the lights on the stage dimmed, the curtain was slowly drawn. Then a monologue with a strange tone came from the stage. "To be or not to be, that is the question. What shall I do?" "Solve it, my soul. To endure or to resist, between the two, which shall I choose? Death relieves pain, death sleeps, death, sleep, death, part of the night. Sleep may dream that when we are freed from the shackles of this body, we will no longer suffer. The curtain slowly opened, and the lights shone on it. The cruel scene on the stage made everyone's eyes widen in shock. 3 female students in drama costumes were tied with their hands and hung on the rack on the stage. The bruised and battered people wailed breathlessly, and blood dripped from their legs onto the stage. The parents of the students who witnessed this scene immediately covered their children's eyes. The school leader, who realized that there was an accident, ran to the stage as fast as possible to find out what happened. Peter watched the scene on the stage and had a bad premonition in his heart. With a bang, the teacher who had just run to the stage was hit by an invisible object and fell heavily to the bottom of the auditorium. The crowd immediately screamed and quickly fled with the parents of the students. Kelly, who was holding Star-Lord, immediately stood up and asked Peter in shock, "What happened?" "I don't know, you take Star-Lord out of here first." Peter escorted Kelly and Star-Lord out, and Azu followed closely to leave the auditorium. Fortunately, the emergency door and the main door of the auditorium were all kept unobstructed, and there was no stampede. Soon, Peter took Kelly, Star-Lord and Azu to the corridor. When several people were about to leave, they suddenly heard footsteps from behind. "Peter Patrick, why are you leaving in such a hurry?" The female voice mixed with harsh hoarseness came into the ears of several people. Peter turned around and found that the girl standing in front of him was wearing an exquisite evening dress. The girl was slightly fat and had a strange temperament. She had a strong red lipstick on the corner of her mouth and smiled at Peter. There is no doubt that the girl in front of him is possessed by a demon. When Zeus saw the girl in front of him, he couldn't believe it and said, "It's you. How is it possible? Who is he?" "John," Peter asked with a frown. "Allison Mack, Clark and I saw her yesterday." Azu looked at the obviously abnormal girl in front of him. She was not on the stage at that time. "John, have you forgotten me? We were still talking in the mirror. It's a pity that you broke our contract in the end. It's a pity. We almost completed the transaction. You are that devil." Azu's expression changed. "You deceived Allison Mack and got her soul," the devil said in a girl's voice. "No, I never deceive. This is what is required for equivalence. I helped her get revenge. Those girls who bullied her were punished and hung in the auditorium to be ridiculed and despised by everyone. This is an exchange. Allison chose destruction, not survival. So," Peter interrupted him and said coldly, "you hung them in the auditorium to spread fear, as if fear will make you stronger. You are so smart, Patrick." The devil chuckled. "Your interesting soul ranks after Constantine. I must get you. Then it depends on whether you survive or perish in the end." Peter looked at Kelly. "Kelly, take Star-Lord away." "You?" Kelly wanted to say something, but finally gritted her teeth and immediately transformed into a white wolf, holding Star-Lord in her mouth and leaving as quickly as possible. "Dad?" Azu stood in front of Peter with a serious expression. "You be my shield, I will be your sharp spear, and we will fight together." Chapter 95. Azu is determined to sacrifice. "Brave John, stop crying like a sissy. Shut up. I'll shoot you to death." Facing the demon's ridicule, Azu's eyes glowed red, and he stared at the demon angrily. "You won't." The demon shook his head. "John, I know you're just pretending to be a strong kid. Not only that, I know what you really look like. I often dream of you in the laboratory at night, listening to the other party's words." Azu's breathing began to become disordered. Seeing that Azu seemed to be provoked by the demon's words, Peter patted his shoulder to calm him down, and then asked the demon, "Who are you?" "Maybe I'm you." As he said, the demon gently brushed off the dust on his shoulders. "Maybe I'm God. Maybe I'm the devil. Maybe I'm just a symbol of fate, something you curse every morning when you wake up and before you go to sleep at night. Who can tell?" Azu next to him couldn't hold back any longer, and suddenly activated his super speed and rushed towards the demon. Facing Azu's attack, the demon calmly blew out a breath, and Azu's high-speed moving body immediately flew backwards uncontrollably. "Don't be so anxious, little John. I have plenty of time. I'm tired of living in hell, so I came to the human world to have some fun." "I have plenty of time," the devil said to the two with a calm expression. Seeing the devil strolling leisurely as if everything was under control, Peter stopped talking nonsense with him and attacked him directly. Seeing Peter approaching him at a high speed, the devil was not in a hurry, but just stomped his feet lightly on the ground. The shaking ground immediately rolled out 2 huge fire dragons, which were so hot that they burned and deformed the air. Facing the fire dragons that stirred the entire ground, Peter immediately stopped and dodged to the side. But the second fire dragon rolling on the ground immediately followed. Feeling the hit coming towards him, Peter never thought that the power of this demon was much stronger than the one he met in the bar before. Peter, who had no choice but to put his arms in front of his chest. With a muffled groan, Peter's body hit the wall, and a deafening sound was heard while smoke and dust filled the air. Seeing Peter being knocked away, the angry Azu immediately fired his heat vision at the demon. What Azu didn't expect was that the demon easily blocked his heat vision with just one hand, without even shaking his body. Regardless of being surprised, he put away his heat vision, rushed behind the demon at his fastest speed, and angrily swung his right fist. With a crackling sound, Azu swung his arm and his fist hit the opponent's head with the force of thunder. The demon immediately turned around and blocked Azu's attack with one hand in front of him. Seeing this, Azu, who was experienced in boxing, immediately changed his moves and attacked his chin with his left fist at a strange angle. Facing Azu's boxing skills, the demon suddenly smiled. It even put down its hands and let Azu's punch hit its chin. With a bang, the demon's body didn't even shake. How is it possible? Azu widened his eyes. Before he could be shocked, the demon suddenly grabbed Azu's left arm with his right hand. Then he pulled him towards himself. During the process, the demon used his left hand to twist his body, causing him to spin several times in the air. Soon, Azu felt a pain in his arm. In order to save his arm, he had to rotate at the angle he twisted. But before he could turn a few times, the demon grabbed his arm and suddenly ignited a terrifying flame, which quickly spread to his whole body. Although this could not cause fatal damage to Azu's steel body, it still made him scream in pain. Along with the scream, the scene in front of Azu suddenly changed. The demon in the corridor disappeared, and the place where he was standing turned into an incineration room. This was a place that had appeared in his dream, and it was also a nightmare in his dream. Looking down, Azu looked at his intact arm in shock. Wasn't he fighting with a demon and being burned by the other party with fire? Why did he suddenly come here? As the temperature in the incineration room rose, Azu soon felt a burning sensation on his skin. With a puff, flames were generated crazily in the room, and then quickly enveloped his whole body. No! No! He screamed in pain as he was surrounded by flames. But the two staff members inside and outside the incineration room turned a blind eye to his pain, as if it was just part of their daily work. One of the staff members observed his reaction while writing down the experimental data. The other staff member did the same thing, except that he would occasionally throw the paper balls into the wastebasket next to him, just like the waste paper shooting game his father usually played with him. Just when he could hardly bear the pain of his body being burned, with a bang, the iron door of the incineration room was roughly kicked open, and a familiar figure suddenly rushed in. The moment the black shadow grabbed his hand, the flames burning on his body quickly faded. In Azu's stunned eyes, the black shadow's face gradually became clear, and finally turned into Peter's appearance. "Are you okay, John?" Peter held Azu's hand and asked him in a daze. After recovering from the attack, Peter saw that Zu was being attacked by the demon with fire, so he rushed over to repel the demon and blew out a hurricane to put out the fire on Zu. Zu's clothes were torn and his face was black. The incinerator and the staff disappeared, and he returned to the place where he had just fought with the demon. Zu, with a handful of ash on his face, asked Peter uncertainly, "Dad, is this not a dream? Now that you're awake, are you injured?" Peter didn't know what Zu had just experienced, but he could probably guess that Zu might have fallen into some kind of illusion. "I'm fine, Dad." Zu blinked, took a deep breath and said, "It wasn't a fake illusion just now, it was a real dream, thank you, Dad." Peter patted his shoulder heavily. "Why are you being polite now? Think about how to deal with him first, Dad." "I have an idea," Zu said confidently. "What is it?" Peter looked at the demon who was staring at the two with a teasing look. "I need you to cover me, Dad. I can do it as long as I get close to him." "Are you sure?" Peter looked at him with doubt. "When did this kid become so smart?" "My advantage is that I can fly, Dad. Believe me, I can use this to deal with him." Looking at Azu's confident expression, Peter nodded. "Okay, Dad will cover you and get close to him." As he spoke, Peter concentrated his mental power and condensed the energy stored in the body of the god's body. He found that this thing was like the chest cannon of the soldier boy. Although it was inconvenient to store energy, it was really powerful. Soon, white energy lingered in his hands, and he immediately rushed towards the demon. The demon did not choose to take this blow head-on, but dodged sideways and grabbed his arm with his backhand. Then he directly pressed the energy in Peter's hand into the ground. Bang! The powerful energy instantly blasted a big hole in the ground, and Peter was also blown away by the recoil. Bang! In order to prevent his body from being injured, Peter turned several times on the ground to relieve the force. At the moment when the demon wanted to speak, Azu suddenly moved behind the demon at lightning speed and locked the other's arm in an instant. The demon reacted immediately, but before he could make a move, a powerful force took his body up to the sky. Ah! Azu roared, his eyes red, and roared and flew into the sky with the demon. Bang bang, the air burst sounded, and Azu's speed instantly exceeded the speed of sound and flew into the atmosphere. Feeling the whistling wind in his ears, the surprised demon wanted to resist, but found that Azu held his hands tightly. "It's amazing, I didn't expect you to be able to burst out such a powerful force," the demon exclaimed in admiration, but his body was burning with flames without martial ethics, and the flames soon spread to Azu. Azu, who was burned by the flames, saw the scene of himself being burned in the incinerator again. But this time he was not knocked down by fear, but continued to grit his teeth and endure, and continued to rush into space at supersonic speed. "I won't be defeated by you this time. Dad gave me courage." Azu hugged the demon tightly. "I will take you to outer space, like a meteor, but not a falling meteor, but a meteor flying into the sky." Boom! The air barrier was broken, and the roar shook the eardrums of the two. The two were getting farther and farther away from the ground, and the sound of the sonic boom shook the surrounding air. "Don't you know that you will die, John?" Azu gritted his teeth tightly. "Dad said that everything has a price. I am not afraid. If I can really kill you, a demon, I am willing to pay this price. Will you sacrifice yourself for others, John?" The demon didn't expect Azu to be so desperate. "Think about it, if you die, your brother will fully enjoy your father's love, and they will soon forget you. Your death will not be remembered by them forever, John. There is no point in you doing this, and your self-sacrifice cannot move anyone." The demon was also somewhat stunned by Azu's behavior. You are wrong. This is meaningful. Dad said that Catholics believe in heaven and hell. They believe in a place called the border of hell and a place called purgatory, while Hindus and Buddhists believe in nirvana. No matter where I go after I die, I will be reborn. At this time, Azu was also afraid that he would really die in outer space, but he still refused to admit defeat. He promised to be his father's spear. Today, no matter what method he used, he would destroy this demon. I will throw you into the sun." Azu gritted his teeth and continued to accelerate upward. On the other side, Peter looked at Azu holding the demon and ascended into the air. He was shocked and stood there unable to move. This kid didn't want to take the demon to space, did he? Fuck, Azu's ability is immature now. He has no biological position and can't use the yellow sun to get energy like Clark. If he continues to fly in space, he will definitely not be able to bear it for a long time. He was anxious and hammered the wall fiercely with his arm. With a boom, the wall was directly smashed through by his arm, making a deafening sound. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96, The Big Man Defeated by Food. Boom. 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 Kelly held Star-Lord in her mouth, stepped on the soft ground, and walked through the grass and dense woods. Standing on the top of the hill, the moonlight as bright as a silver plate sprinkled on her body, coating her already bright silver hair with a layer of silver gray. Kelly looked back at the school where the rumbling sound came faintly, and a trace of worry flashed in her eyes. Looking up at the huge moon in the sky, she lowered her head and whimpered, turned around and rushed to the farm. Her current mission is to protect Star-Lord. With a boom, she jumped from the top of the hill, and then heard a whistling sound from above her head. As the sound of vibrating eardrums got closer and closer, in Kelly's astonished eyes, not far to the left front, two shadows fell from the sky at a high speed. Boom, boom, the earth was shaken by the bombardment, and the soil was shaken and flew into the air and fell down. Startled, Kelly walked forward and looked at the deep pit on the ground, and took a deep breath. Lying in the pit was Azu, whose clothes were tattered, his body was black and smoking, and he fell to the ground and gasped for breath. Another girl who fell from the sky landed on her feet steadily. She brushed off the dust on her shoulders and looked at Azu in the pit. "It's a pity, I can fly too. You don't think a big demon can't fly as fast as you, do you? Although my current strength is nothing compared to before." As he said that, he looked at Kelly, who had transformed into a white wolf and was holding Star-Lord in her mouth, and clapped his hands elegantly. "What a coincidence, Peter Patrick's second son was obtained by me just like this." The demon, who was quite surprised, walked towards Kelly. Feeling the powerful momentum emanating from the other party, Kelly made a whimpering sound in her mouth, and a faint green light shot out of her eyes. While retreating with Star-Lord in her mouth, she prepared for a fight. "Oh, little wolf girl, you can't escape now." The corners of the demon's mouth suddenly cracked, and he stretched out his claws to Kelly with a hideous face. The next moment, Kelly's body immediately moved forward uncontrollably, as if driven by an invisible force to move in the direction of the demon. Knowing that she was controlled by the other party, Kelly, who clenched her teeth and was about to make a desperate fight, suddenly heard the sound of air bursting. Bang! Peter's body was like a flying missile, directly knocking the demon away. With a dull impact sound, the unprepared demon fell heavily to the ground. Peter, who was slightly panting, looked at Azu, who fell in the pit. After sensing that the other party was not seriously injured, he let out a long breath. "It's good that this kid is okay. You are so fast, Peter, much faster than I thought." The demon lying quietly on the ground opened her eyes wide, and with a bang, her body stood up instantly like a seesaw. She sighed, put her left hand on her forehead and continued helplessly, "Your family is really difficult. Look at your eldest son. He wants to hold me and melt in the sun. What a great spirit of self-sacrifice. If I didn't have some ability, I'm afraid he would succeed. What a pity. I won't let him be a hero. If he died and went to heaven, I would definitely go crazy." Hearing the other party talking about fighting with God for souls, a name suddenly flashed in Peter's mind. "Are you Satan from hell?" Lucifer. Hearing Peter's words, Lucifer's expression froze in an instant. "You are so smart, Peter. You called out my name, but I didn't intend to hide it." The devil Lucifer rubbed his forehead with his hand, and the image of the little girl gradually faded from him. Under Kelly's shocked gaze, a blond and white-skinned young man in a black suit stood in front of Peter. The other party admitted that he was Lucifer, but Peter doubted it instead. He knew the existence of this famous fallen angel in the DC world. This guy was originally the most perfect angel created by God, but because of his dissatisfaction with God, mainly dissatisfaction with his predetermined fate, he led a group of equally dissatisfied angels to rebel. But in the end, the rebellion failed, and he himself was expelled from heaven by God and sentenced to rule hell forever. It is said that this guy is very arrogant and very good at calculating, which makes many people feel headache for him. Moreover, Lucifer is not an ordinary fallen angel. He is the most perfect creation of God. Therefore, even if he is demoted to hell, he still retains the sacred glory and almost omnipotent divine power. But Peter frowned and looked at him. This guy is almost omnipotent, but the strength he shows now is not as legendary. Is this guy's divine power restricted, or is he hiding his strength? Although Lucifer is powerful and often falls into danger because of his arrogance and arrogance, Lucifer with his temperament is not like the Lord of Hell, but like a middle school kid. Maybe the demon in front of him is not the real Lucifer. After all, demons have always been the creatures who love to lie the most. Peter fell into deep thought. Lucifer took a few steps forward and said to Peter, who was in deep thought, "I am not Satan now. My throne was taken away by someone and my power has weakened a lot. So now I can only walk in the world, but this is not bad. I have long been tired of the life in hell, otherwise I would not know your family." Peter nodded. "So you are a down-and-out demon." "I have also picked up a down-and-out poor boy before." Lucifer ignored Peter's strange words and took a step closer to Peter. "Although I know how you will answer, I want to ask again, are you willing to give your soul to become my servant?" Peter took a deep breath and slowly raised a middle finger to the other party. "Fuck, squid." Lucifer, who was angered by Peter's middle finger, immediately launched the power of magic. A huge pressure quickly spread to the surrounding space. The huge and vast magic power spread out like a doomsday tsunami, madly squeezing the surrounding space. Peter immediately felt that he could not move his whole body, as if the surrounding space had locked him. Kelly and Azu, who was injured and unable to stand up, were also suppressed by this invisible pressure and could not move. Lucifer slowly walked forward a few steps and walked in front of Peter, who could not move. He said to Peter proudly, "How about it? Are you willing to be my slave now?" Peter: "Patrick, if you agree to be my slave and return to hell, I can let However, before he finished speaking, he noticed that Peter's expression was a little wrong. I guess, he moved his fingers, there must be something incredible behind me, right? Bang! The next second, Lucifer was punched and flew out. It is not quite accurate to say it was a fist. When Lucifer stood up, he saw an incredible scene. It was not a fist, but a huge cookie. Is this sharp cookie? Looking at the huge cookie with pure white light all over its body, Lucifer widened his eyes, and the whole demon was stunned. How could a cookie attack him? But he soon figured out what was going on. The shell of the cookie was made of the surrounding stones, and inside was Peter's second son. This baby seemed to have a special power. At the same time, Peter also felt the power of the gods in his body being activated, and the weakness and pain caused by the explosion just now began to weaken. He looked at Star-Lord, who had turned into Cookie, in shock. Bang! The cookie jumped up and turned to fly towards Lucifer. Lucifer, who felt insulted, twitched his eyelids, and flashed to the front of the cookie that wrapped Star-Lord. Bang! Lucifer punched out, making a deafening explosion. Star-Lord used stones and oil to wrap his own cookie shell, but was blown up by Lucifer's punch. But he awakened the power of the gods, and at a speed visible to the naked eye, he wrapped himself in oil and stones again to form a new cookie. At the same time, the oil on the ground began to move. The mud condensed into chocolate-flavored slices, shortbread, and oatmeal, as well as the gunman holding a six-shooter in the Sharp Cookies commercial, which was shaped by the mud and attacked Lucifer. The gunman shot out cookies instead of bullets. Soon Lucifer was trapped in a sea of food. Enough. Being attacked by endless food, Lucifer finally couldn't bear it anymore and shouted angrily. But before he could protest, a pure white tentacle energy bar pierced his chest directly. Lucifer looked at his chest in astonishment, as if he didn't expect to be attacked by a baby. Peter, who saw the opportunity, immediately flew towards the opponent quickly, and all the energy gathered in his chest. Bang! He hugged Lucifer directly. In Lucifer's puzzled eyes, Peter smiled at him, and then a powerful energy condensed in his chest. Bang! The terrifying energy shot out from Peter's chest, emitting a devastating power, directly blasted the opponent's body outward. With the impact of the energy in his chest, Lucifer's body gradually turned into powder. Huh? Peter caught the Star-Lord, who had just released his sweet cookie transformation, and looked at the boy who saved the situation with a slight breath. It seems that eating more is not a bad thing. Peter reached out and pinched Star-Lord's face. It seemed that the battle just now consumed a lot of energy, causing Star-Lord to fall into deep sleep quickly. Boom! Clark ran over at the fastest speed and saw the messy scene in front of him, as well as the injured Peter and Zoo. Godfather, Clark asked carefully, am I late? He had just sent his parents home and rushed here as fast as he could, but he didn't expect to be late. On the other side, Zoo, who had already stood up, looked at the powerful Star-Lord with a complicated expression. Although he still hated this kid, he suddenly felt a sense of identity in his heart. Chapter 97, Star-Lord, who appears to be a good man but is actually a sinister person. Okay, you can pick 3 cards. Don't let me see, show it to your buddy, remember which card it is. Okay, Star-Lord took a deck of cards and showed it to the 2 tall and strong middle school students in front of him. At this time, the 2 students each held a baseball bat and faced the fat kid Star-Lord. Since the 2 had robbed Star-Lord at this time, they didn't quite understand why this guy not only didn't cry and go home, but instead said he wanted to perform magic for him. You remember it, right? Star-Lord asked seriously. Yes, very good, then give me this card, and I'll insert it into it. Star-Lord coughed, put the card drawn by the other party into the deck, and then shuffled it again skillfully. Now I don't know which card you drew, because I didn't see it, right? The middle school student holding the baseball bat nodded hesitantly, and then quickly pointed the baseball bat at the other party. Don't play tricks on me, no, it will be done soon. After Star-Lord shuffled the cards, he drew a red 2 from the deck and showed it to the other party. You just chose this one, right? The 2 senior students looked at each other. No, not this one, you can't do magic at all, idiot, isn't it? Star-Lord took the card with some surprise and looked at it carefully. It shouldn't be. Hey, don't play tricks on me, take out everything in your school bag, kid, don't play tricks, otherwise I will beat you so hard that your mother won't recognize you. No, no, as he said, Star-Lord drew out a spade 9 again, with a faint and honest smile on his face. I guess it should be this one, spade 9, am I right? He threw the spade 9 card in his left hand, and the card instantly went into his right hand. "Look, is it this one?" As he said, Star-Lord handed the card to the other party. Seeing Star-Lord's wonderful magic, the two senior students looked at each other with incredible expressions on their faces. "Good magic, your skills don't match your body," the two students relaxed and said to him jokingly. However, the next second, Star-Lord suddenly jumped up, snatched the baseball bat from the guy standing in front of him, and then knocked down another senior student with a backhand elbow. After snatching the baseball, Star-Lord grabbed the guy's collar and pushed him against the wall. He asked him, "Do you want to see another magic, Gudong?" The student whose baseball bat was taken away swallowed his saliva, his body trembling nervously, fearing that the other party would really hit him with a stick. "No, what?" Forced by Star-Lord's threatening eyes, he quickly changed his words and stumbled, "No. I mean, I want to see, you really want to see it." After that, Star-Lord pushed the other person forward, pushing him against the wall with a bang. Then he turned and walked to the other senior student who was lying on the ground. Then he bent down and took out a Walkman from the other person's pocket. "You shouldn't have taken my Walkman, or I wouldn't have hit you like that," Star-Lord, with a serious expression, said as he took out his Walkman, put it in his pocket, and then turned away without looking back. Watching Star-Lord's back as he left, the two students, still in shock, looked at each other. "This little fat guy seems to be very unusual." However, they soon began to doubt their guesses. After Star-Lord put on his headphones, he nodded and swayed from side to side, twisting his waist from time to time, or kicking at the stones on the roadside when he was excited. The scalp-numbing dance posture, combined with his figure, made it impossible to look straight at him. Yes, he doesn't look like an ordinary person, but more like a fool. Star-Lord, who didn't know that they were talking about him, was immersed in his own world. At this moment, he felt that the whole world was at his feet. At Patrick's farm, Peter looked at Star-Lord, who stuffed cookies into his mouth with a serious expression. 3 years have passed since the last battle with Lucifer. In 3 years, Clark and Azu are now 10 years old. Logically speaking, Star-Lord, who is already 3 years old, should still be a 3-year-old child at this time. But for some reason, it may be true as Kelly said, this kid is born in the year of the pig, and he is only 3 years old, but he looks like a 6-year-old child. This 3 years old? I don't believe it. But fortunately, all of this is within Peter's understanding. After all, when this kid was still a baby, he could stimulate his talent to fight Lucifer. It can be seen that precocity is not something that cannot be understood. But the only pity for Peter is that since the last battle with Lucifer, Star-Lord has basically not activated the power of the gods again. It seems that this kid, like Clark and Azu, will gradually develop his abilities as he grows older. Star-Lord, did you go to the Kosh tribe to see Miss Kelly? Recently, the Kosh tribe had something going on, so Kelly was busy there for the time being and did not return to the farm. Yes, Dad, Miss Kelly said she would have to stay for a while. It seems that they have a land dispute with the government. I don't quite understand, Star-Lord said while eating cookies. Hey, Zu looked at the food residue that Star-Lord had shaken off on him and put down his cutlery. Can you eat quietly, without making any noise, and without leaving food residue everywhere? Sorry, that's how I usually eat. You? Zu pushed his chair away unhappily and glared at Star-Lord. Can you add a brother in front of your answer? Sorry. Seeing Star-Lord's insincere apology, Zu felt like he wanted to hit the fat boy. Do you have any problem? What? Star-Lord turned around and looked at him. I've always been fine. Dad said I have no problem sleeping or eating. Although he was optimistic in his heart, Star-Lord was also very unhappy with Zu's constant nitpicking. If you think I'm affecting you, Clark, Star-Lord walked towards the confused Clark with a plate of food. Let's eat together, okay? Clark nodded subconsciously, not noticing Zu's very unhappy expression. Peter looked at his two quarreling sons and coughed in dissatisfaction. Neither of them made him worry. It turns out that raising a daughter is the least troublesome, at least she won't be so noisy. John, Peter glanced at Zu. Zu, who puffed up his cheeks and exhaled like a big mushroom, soon sat down honestly after seeing Peter's serious face. Clark saw that the atmosphere at the dinner table was a little tense due to Star-Lord and Zu, and tried to talk about other topics. Godfather, when will Mr. Jones come? Peter thought for a while. Probably next month. He has a lot of his own things to deal with. You know, Mr. Jones is a very ambitious person. Do you miss him, Clark? Yes, I want to ask him some questions. Clark said that he was going to do an investigation on outer space biology. And perhaps the Martian hunter could help him. Peter nodded. Did your teacher leave any practical homework, Clark? Yes, I have to look up some information. I remember some things, but I forgot them recently. I can't remember where I saw these materials. Clark said that he has been losing things recently. Peter wanted to complain. Your super brain is not developed yet? Unexpectedly, Star-Lord, who was eating, suddenly made a loud voice. Hey, Clark dropped the spoon in his hand on the table. You remember, Clark? What? Clark looked at him in confusion. Star-Lord asked expectantly, didn't you remember something you couldn't remember just now? No. I didn't remember. Why did you yell? Clark asked puzzled. Dad said that sometimes a sudden shock can help you remember something, so. I want to scare you, maybe you will remember it. I want to help you, Clark said speechlessly. I don't think this method will work. After Clark and Azu left the farm to go to school, Star-Lord stayed on the farm because he was not old enough to go to school. Dad, can you teach me another magic trick? Star-Lord asked expectantly. Do you still want to learn magic? Although he grew up on a farm, Star-Lord's personality still has a little shadow of his previous life. For example, he is occasionally funny, lively, kind and smart, likes to make some strange little things, and likes dancing and music. However, this kid also has a cruel side. His precocious personality makes him very sensitive to the emotions of the outside world. Although he is usually tolerant and understanding, all this goodwill is based on the key foundation of people close to him are not hurt. Once this line of defense is broken, this kid will show his ruthlessness. For example, last time someone insulted Clark and Zoo, Star-Lord knocked the other person down with one punch. Anyway, this kid's impulsive personality should not be changed. Didn't you just learn a magic trick yesterday? Peter looked at him in surprise. That magic has lost its freshness, Dad. I want to learn a new one. Star-Lord continued to speak with some frustration. After I used this magic in front of others, this magic felt that it had lost its freshness. Oh, Peter nodded. So you had a fight outside today, right? They wanted to rob me, Dad. Star-Lord said that he was passively defending. You said I should punch them in the face, but I didn't do that. But I elbowed them, Star-Lord said proudly, and I showed them my magic tricks. Peter was silent for a moment and asked the other party, so, you deliberately let them rob you, then performed magic tricks for them, and finally beat them up? He didn't expect that this kid had so many crooked ideas and knew how to use fishing enforcement. No, Dad, I'm a victim. I didn't mean it. Star-Lord pretended to be well-behaved. Peter looked at his harmless chubby face and couldn't help but complain in his heart. Did this kid learn this disguised expression from Azu? Thanks to my little carp, the meow of the home cat, turkey-flavored pot-boiled pork slices, Ateon next door, and Lucian's hymning for their rewards. Thank you. Thank you for your monthly tickets and recommendations. I write 10,000 words every day. I ask for your monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Chapter 98 Angry Clark, Dejected Father. You don't seem to like Star-Lord? Clark asked Zoo on the way to school. Yes, I don't like him, because he looks like an unbearable idiot. I think Dad should send him back to the Kosh tribe to live with Miss Kelly. Zoo said that the tribe was where he should go, instead of staying on the farm and being an eyesore. Why does he have to live with Miss Kelly? Clark asked puzzled. Because he is Miss Kelly's child? Zoo brought out his previous judgment again. Kelly can turn into a white wolf, and Star-Lord turned into a pig before he was 3 years old. Doesn't this just show that he inherited Kelly's talent? Clark, scratching his head, he said to Zoo, I don't think Star-Lord is too fat. At most he can only be considered strong. Are you serious? Zoo looked at him in surprise. He has become the same as Gal. Isn't he fat? When the two were discussing whether Star-Lord was fat or strong, a scavenger walked past them. The scavenger looked like a dirty wolf man and sniffed everywhere. The other person was thin and had long limbs. He was dancing funny dance steps as if he was enjoying the music that no one else could hear except himself. His long brown hair was pulled tightly on both sides and tied to the top of his head with a rubber band. The pungent smell rushed straight into his nose, making it difficult for people to dodge. Azu saw that he had been picking the blood scab on his arm and noticed that his teeth were abnormal. Hi, hello, the scavenger said friendly while walking towards the two. Get out of the way. Otherwise I will shoot you to death with my laser eyes. Get out of the way. Damn it, Azu cursed at him unceremoniously. The scavenger was shocked by Azu's brutal performance. After a while, he glanced at Clark, who was also stunned, and walked away angrily. "John, why do you treat him like this?" Clark asked puzzledly. Although Azu usually doesn't like homeless people, he doesn't curse them directly. Is it because Azu is in a bad mood recently? Because he's a drug addict? Zu glanced at the homeless man, shrugged his shoulders and said, "Dad said that we must stay away from people like this." Clark asked in surprise, "How do you know?" "I saw his teeth. Judging from their color and stability, it won't be long before they break like falling icicles." Zu said that his supervision is not a lie. "People like this will die in prison, die when they inject some sweet Mexican brown into their arms, or take risks to get high, rob banks or go to $0 shopping and get beaten to death. They only have these two endings." Dad said that people like this don't deserve pity. He exhaled and continued to popularize Clark, "And they can't quit. Drugs are not milk. You can't quit if you want to. So, Dad told us to stay away from this kind of thing." Clark swallowed his saliva. "I will stay away from these terrible things too. Addiction is not just drugs, Clark. Gluttony is also an addiction, just like Star-Lord. I guess sooner or later he will be like the homeless man we met just now." As the two talked, they walked to the school and happened to encounter a rugby training camp. Clark saw Lana next to the rugby team. Lana was sitting in the stands, laughing and discussing something with her bestie. Clark glanced at Lana and looked at the players on the playground with some melancholy. He has liked rugby since he was a child, but because of his physical condition, he will never be able to join the rugby team. "Don't look at it, Clark. You will never be looked at that way by her," Zu complained to him, "unless you can convince your father to become a football player." Clark looked at Lana reluctantly and quickly followed Zu's footsteps. "Maybe the Godfather can convince my father." Clark's father, Jonathan, has always been negative about his son joining the football team. He hopes that the Godfather can help convince his father. Impossible, because Mr. Kent is the most stubborn person. Even Dad can't persuade him. "Okay." Clark lowered his head in frustration. He knew Zu was right. "Why don't you join football, John?" he asked Zu curiously. "The Godfather won't stop you from participating in such activities, right?" "Because I don't want to be a TV sports star." Zu looked at the players on the court. "I don't like being judged." As the two walked across the court, Whitney from the team saw Clark walking behind. Thinking of embarrassing Clark, he picked up the football and shouted, "Hey, Clark!" Clark turned back when he heard the voice, and saw the football that was constantly enlarging in his sight. Bang! Clark steadily caught the football thrown by Whitney. "Easy catch." The other members of the football team saw Clark's catching action and shouted to him. Clark smiled, held the ball with his hands, and then threw it to Whitney. He added some strength to the football and threw it heavily to Whitney. Whitney was surprised to see the football thrown at him like lightning, and hurriedly caught it with his hands. But because the ball was too strong, it slipped out of his hand and hit his stomach. Whitney, who covered his stomach, groaned. The team coach, who witnessed everything nearby, stared at Clark's back as he left, and his eyes narrowed. Afternoon. Clark was packing up to go home. The football team coach would called him. Clark didn't expect the team coach to greet him, and he was slightly stunned. "Hello, coach. I saw your pitch this morning. Your technique was a little poor, but the power was very strong." The coach praised Clark's pitching, and then asked, "Why didn't you join our team?" "I have to do farm work at home." Coach Wood shook his head regretfully. "You should use your talent on the court. There is a game in school recently, and we are short of players. If you want to participate, you can come anytime." Clark was tempted, but thinking of his father's attitude, he said a little frustrated, "My father won't agree." "I remember," Coach Wood thought for a while, "your father is Jonathan Kent, right? He's the most talented player I have ever coached. I've seen you staring at the photo of your father in the school trophy case. You must also want to participate in this kind of activity, right?" Clark hesitated. "I have to think about it." Coach Wood patted him on the shoulder. "I know you are worried about your father's obstruction, Clark, but we are all growing up. One day you will get rid of your father's shadow and become a real man, don't you think?" Clark hesitated, raised his eyes and saw Lana walking over. He took a deep breath, made up his mind, and said to the coach, "Yes, coach, I am willing to participate." "Very good. Change your clothes and report to me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon." In the evening, Clark returned to the Kent farm. Jonathan was repairing the tractor. "Wait." Jonathan wiped his hands with a rag and asked Clark, "Did you promise him?" "Coach Wood didn't give me a chance to refuse." "Oh." Jonathan put down the wrench and faced Clark. "Let me guess. He must have told you to be a real man, right? He has been saying the same thing for 20 years. I've heard it countless times. Jonathan walked to the back of the tractor, bent down to pick up the repair items, and said to him, "You must tell the coach tomorrow afternoon that you can't join the football team." Hearing that his father would not let him participate, the smile on Clark's face quickly disappeared. He quickly walked to his father and begged, "Dad, don't do this. I'm sorry, but we've talked about it." Clark looked at Jonathan in disbelief. "This is not a conversation. I will be careful." "But you never believe me." "Of course I believe you, Clark, but what?" "Dad, I'm 10 years old. I can make decisions on the court." Jonathan walked to the front of the tractor and while packing up his things, he said to Clark, "You can't. On the court, many things will affect your judgment. If you get angry, or you want to play tricks on a girl, someone will be seriously injured." He patted Clark on the shoulder. Clark, you have a more important mission than winning American football games. I will control myself. My godfather has always taught me how to control my strength. Mr. Jones also taught me to meditate and control my emotions. Dad, I won't let anyone get hurt." Jonathan shook his head. "You are not mature enough, Clark." Hearing his father's words, Clark was immediately furious. He raised his voice and said angrily, "I've had enough. I'm tired of being punished for my talent." Clark looked at his father disappointedly. Most parents are happy that their sons join the football team. "I don't understand why you keep stopping me." Jonathan stood up and looked at Clark. "Because, I don't need to rely on your achievements to live." Clark exhaled and calmed down his anger. "You used to play football. Why do you want to stop me?" Jonathan's expression also became serious. "I won't sign the license agreement. I don't need you to sign it." Clark looked into his father's eyes, without any intention of giving in. "I will let the Godfather sign it for me. You can't stop me." He turned and walked outside. "Where are you going?" Seeing Clark leave without looking back, Jonathan frowned and asked. Stopping, Clark turned around. "I'm going to live with the Godfather and won't come back at night. Also, if it's the Godfather, he will trust me and won't always doubt me like you do." After Clark finished speaking, he left with a disappointed face. Jonathan watched his son leave and put down the car repair tools in his hands with a gloomy expression. Chapter 99, The Forest Witch and the Insidious Flattery. At night, at Patrick's farm, Peter was talking to Jonathan on the phone. He glanced at Clark, who was sitting with Star-Lord in the living room, and said, "Yes, don't worry, Clark looks fine." "That's good." Jonathan couldn't help but complain to Peter, "I don't know why he is so stubborn. I wasn't in his state when I was his age." Peter nodded and changed his movements. "Yes, I heard Martha say that you listened to your father very much, Jonathan. You never ran away from home to join the Metropolitan Sharks in the summer." After being teased by Peter, Jonathan coughed. "When did you join the opposing side?" "Peter, I haven't been on the side. Clark can't do normal things. He has no other friends except Azu and Star-Lord. He can't join the Little League because you are afraid that he will hurt people. He has grown up, Jonathan. You should give him a chance. His talent comes with responsibility." "Peter, this is not a talent, but a kind of judgment. You told Clark that you don't believe in him." Jonathan's voice came from the other end of the phone. "No, of course I believe him, but what if he arouses someone's suspicion? Just like old Hori last time. I don't want anyone to come to the farm and take Clark away." Peter put the microphone to his other ear. "I think if you don't trust him, he will leave on his own." Hearing Peter's words, Jonathan was speechless for a long time. "Well, Clark has a game this Friday. I think he must want to see you cheering for him on the court soon." The two ended the call. Back in the living room, Clark thanked him. "Thank you, Godfather. Thank you for helping me sign the permission agreement." "You're welcome. I look forward to your performance in the team, but remember to control your power." "I will," Clark assured Peter. Then he asked with great expectation, "Godfather, will you go to see my performance?" "Of course. This is your first competition. Godfather will of course participate." "Great." Clark excitedly waved his fist. "I will definitely win." Star-Lord beside him felt Clark's joy and said, "I want to participate too." "Dad, your figure won't work, unless you lose weight, but looking at your perseverance, losing weight will never be possible." Azu, who was watching TV next to him, laughed at Star-Lord mercilessly. "I think my figure is just right for the sport of rugby." Star-Lord didn't think he was fat at all. In his words, "This is called feeling very safe." "Then you can try it. You will be knocked to the ground by others." Azu could already imagine the scene of Star-Lord participating in a rugby game and being beaten up. But he soon remembered another very important thing. Dad, aren't we going to go hunting in the forest on Friday? Azu has been looking forward to hunting on the weekend for a long time. Maybe we can change the time, not necessarily on Friday. Peter said that hunting can be done at any time, but there is only one competition. Dad, are there reindeers in the woods? Star-Lord asked curiously. Of course there are. Peter touched Star-Lord's head. You may see a moose in the forest. It won't cause you any trouble. Except for the mating season, moose are a little restless. Other times, they just stare at people when they meet people. These moose love to chase people during the estrus period. What is the estrus period, Dad? Star-Lord asked curiously. You don't need to know this, Peter coughed and said to the naughty child. Also, you can't go into the forest alone. There are poisonous vines and oaks in the forest. If your butt touches those things, Star-Lord, you have to take an ointment bath for 3 weeks. Hearing his father say that he had to take an ointment bath for 3 weeks when he went into the forest, Star-Lord immediately became honest. In fact, there are forest banshees in the woods. Azu told Star-Lord the story of the forest banshee with bad intentions. The banshee has a cow's tail and sings beautiful songs, attracting those who cut wood to her and imprisoning her. He looked at Star-Lord. If you enter the forest, you might be imprisoned by her. Star-Lord blinked and thought. She has a cow's tail, so she should be able to plow the land, right? Azu couldn't keep up with Star-Lord's train of thought. Probably, if she can plow the land, I will catch her and let her work on the farm, so that I can help reduce the burden on my father. Azu was stunned when he heard what Star-Lord said. He didn't expect that although his cheat brother was young, he was not inferior to himself in flattering his father. Looking at Peter's satisfied expression, Azu clenched his fork unwillingly. This little fat guy is indeed his biggest threat. After dinner, Star-Lord stayed alone in the storage room on the second floor, sorting out his strange and weird things. Although he was young, he liked to make some small things. For example, a telescope that can observe outer space. He has a strong curiosity about the universe, and his favorite thing is to study these things related to space. He put the new lens he bought at the convenience store in the telescope, and kept adjusting various angles, hoping to make a telescope with the highest visibility. He also hopes to build a spaceship one day, take the farm and Peter to travel in space, and leave Azu alone here. In this secret base he built, there is also a music player for relaxation. Click. Star-Lord, who is in a good mood, pressed the button of the player. The music came from the player, and Star-Lord's hands moved faster with the rhythm of the music. The sound of the music player came out of the door and reached Azu's ears. Azu, who was reading a horror novel, immediately threw the book on the bed in anger. He didn't like these music in the first place, and now he felt even more upset after hearing the music played by Star-Lord. With a whoosh, Azu flew out of the window. In the secret base, Star-Lord, who was listening to music and studying the telescope, suddenly saw a black shadow flashing outside the window. Confused, he looked up and looked outside. Jonathan walked to Peter with a serious expression, and Clark hurriedly greeted him. Dad, you are here too. He didn't expect his father to come too. Is he here to cheer for him? But soon, Jonathan's words made his originally high mood depressed. I still don't support your decision, Clark. The purpose of my coming here is to see if anyone is injured. Peter saw Jonathan's bad temper coming up again, and pulled him to stop him from saying more words that would dampen morale. Okay, Clark, go to the game quickly. And remember to win the game. Just at this time, the coach's shout came, Kent, hurry up and be the tailback over there. Looking at Clark's back as he left, Peter said to Jonathan, don't worry, Clark knows what he should do. Clark put on his equipment, bent down slightly, and waited for the game to start. Blue Rabbit, 3, 2, 1, come on. After the slogan was issued, Clark rushed forward with the football. As a result, he was tackled just after running 2 steps. Bank fell heavily to the ground, splashing the mud on the ground. Clark turned over and looked at Peter in the stands. The aggressive coach ran over, grabbed the mesh on his helmet and pulled him up. Look at me, don't look at the stands anymore. Your dad is not your coach, I am. The coach, who is like a hair dryer, yelled at him, focus the hell, cheer up, and attack others. Clark nodded blankly. Standing at the kickoff again, he glanced at Peter from the corner of his eye and found that the other party gave him a thumbs-up gesture. Huh? Clark took a deep breath and suddenly calmed down completely. Okay, same tactics, Blue Rabbit, 3, 2, 1, come on, come on. Beat them, the players cheered each other on. After the game started, Clark was not knocked down by others this time. He stretched his body and exerted a little strength, leaving the players who rushed up helpless. Bang! 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 The players who wanted to knock him fell to the ground one after another. Clark held the ball and ran all the way to the opponent's end zone. Facing the players of the enemy team who were rushing up, Clark suddenly jumped forward and rushed over at lightning speed to score a touchdown. Seeing Clark scoring, the team immediately cheered and surrounded him. There was also warm applause from the stands. After celebrating with his teammates, Clark looked towards the stands. What he saw was his father Jonathan leaving the stands. Clark's originally excited mood seemed to be poured with a bucket of cold water. "Kent, this is great. Well done." The coach patted his shoulder heavily, and other teammates also talked about it. Clark didn't pay attention to what these people said, and he was in a bad mood. Looking at Peter, who was applauding him in the stands, he suddenly had an old thought in his mind. It would be great if the Godfather was his biological father. Chapter 100, Alienated Clark. "What's wrong? Why aren't you happy even though you won the game?" Peter walked over to Clark and sat down on the stands. The two of them sat together facing the playground. "I don't know why Dad left," Clark said depressedly. "Your father's farm has something to do, so I'm going back first." Peter found a reason for Jonathan, and then encouraged him. "You did a great job today, Clark." "I actually know." Clark said that he actually knew why his father left. "Dad was unhappy because I used my superpowers to win the game, but my ability should be closely tied to me. It is a part of me. Unless it is taken away, I can't distinguish it well." Clark, who was depressed, looked at his hands. "Now I feel that this talent is not only a mission, but more like a curse." He looked up at Peter blankly. "Godfather, I actually want to experience the life of an ordinary person, unrestrained and free." Peter touched Clark's hair and said, "Everyone lives in shackles, Clark. True freedom is something no one can do. Even if I give up my superpowers and don't do the great mission that my father will talk about in the future, I can't be free." Peter was shocked when he heard Clark say that he wanted to give up his superpowers. This kid is not really interested in his mission to save the world, right? This is not a good start. He felt that he needed to correct this kid's decadent thoughts. "No, even if you give up your ability, you can't be truly free, Clark." "Really?" Clark lowered his head in frustration, and raised his head after a moment and asked him, "Godfather, what kind of person do you want me to be?" This is a complicated question. Peter thought for a while and said, "The Godfather hopes that you will be a person who still has hope in his heart even if he is bound by shackles." "Hope?" Clark repeated the word in his mouth. "Yes, hope. This is what you should have most." Peter looked at the crowd in the playground and suddenly remembered a story from a parallel universe in DC. "The Godfather will tell you a story, Clark. Do you want to hear it?" Clark nodded. "Yes, Godfather." Although he has passed the stage of listening to bedtime stories, he still wants to hear the Godfather's story very much. It's a story from an alien planet. On this planet, people are enslaved by a man named Mongo. Mongo uses the slave gladiatorial system to allow people to gain a higher status. The more they fight, the more people they can enslave. Peter's voice gradually immersed Clark in it. Later, a hero joined the battle. He overthrew Mongo, rescued the slaves, and completely destroyed this game of power. More and more slaves began to raise their hands and wave the chains in their hands. Did he succeed, Godfather? No. Later the hero was caught. Do you know why he failed? Clark lowered his head and pondered for a while, then asked Peter, "Is it because his power is not strong enough?" "No, he is very powerful, the most powerful hero in the entire universe, but he still failed, because his enemy is not a villain, but a concept. Slaves crave heroes to save them, but they hate heroes." Clark asked puzzledly. "Why?" Peter continued to say to Clark, "Because the slaves have become accustomed to this kind of shackles, and they are addicted to this game of power. A powerful king not only controls a person with physical shackles and violence, but also binds people with an oppressive atmosphere and constant lies. Chains are physical and spiritual. Chains are a tool and a concept. It is that feeling of helplessness and frustration that is the biggest enemy facing heroes." Peter looked at the setting sun, paused for a moment and continued, "The slaves of the entire planet are in a kind of shackles. They are not free, but hate to be free from this freedom. Therefore, Clark, human beings will be trapped in shackles, whether passively or actively." Clark listened to Peter's words and seemed to understand something in his heart. He took a deep breath and said to Peter, "So, Godfather, what did the hero do in the end?" Peter coughed and asked him, "If it were you, what would you do?" In fact, He was telling the story of Superman in a parallel world, and the hero in it was Superman. He wanted to see what choice Clark would make as the future Superman. I think, Godfather, I will give those slaves hope and courage. Peter looked at him in surprise after hearing this. This kid really has the character of a Superman. Good answer, Clark. Peter rubbed Clark's head and said. Later, a friend of the hero showed up and wanted to help him escape from prison, but the hero refused. Peter paused and continued. His reason was, I was imprisoned here, so I could talk to the remaining gladiators. Even if we win today, we can't save them. It depends on whether the people here really want to escape. Otherwise, nothing will change. What I have to do is give them hope of freedom. Hope. Clark, who was a little fascinated by what he heard, repeated the word again. Yes, hope. The Godfather hopes that you will become a person of hope, even if you are bound by shackles, giving hope to yourself and others. As he said that, he stretched out his hand and drew the letter S on Clark's chest. Let's go. It's too late. We have to go back. Peter stood up, clapped his hands, and shouted to Star-Lord, who was playing on the playground in the distance. Star-Lord, come up. We have to go home. Hearing his father calling him, Star-Lord immediately ran to the stands as fast as he could. Clark followed Peter out of the playground. When he reached the door, he looked at the setting sun, then looked down at his chest. He seemed to really see a huge S shining brightly on his chest. The next day, early in the morning, Clark and Zoo rushed to school from the farm. At this time, Smallville School was selling prom rings. Although junior students were not allowed to attend the senior prom rings would be sold, which was also a tradition of Smallville. It is said that this prom ring is made of precious rubies, and the origin of this ruby is a very precious meteorite. Zoo said what he knew. As they talked, they walked to the place where the rings were sold. Looking at the long line in the corridor, Clark couldn't help but take a breath. So everyone likes prom rings? Zoo nodded. Yes, I want to buy one too. Clark looked at him in surprise. Are you serious? This kind of ring is $35, which is not cheap. Will the Godfather agree? I think so. This money is my pocket money earned on the farm. Dad said I have the right to control it. Zoo took out $35 and lined up at the back of the line. I want to buy one for my dad as a gift. Okay. Clark thought about it, touched his pocket, and stood behind Zoo. Zoo looked at him in surprise. You want to buy one too? Yes, I also want to buy one for my Godfather. It would be great if I could engrave an S on it. Zoo asked in confusion. Why engrave an S? I'm not sure about this, but it probably means hope. My Godfather told me, Clark said as he took out his wallet. You actually have money? Zoo was more and more surprised. How did you save it? I also earn pocket money on the farm, and I borrowed money from my Godfather. Hearing the other party talking about borrowing money, Zoo said a little unhappy. You should borrow it from your father Jonathan, not from my father. Anyway, I will pay it back. Clark walked to the person in charge of registration and asked the person in charge if he could engrave a letter. After getting a positive answer, Clark excitedly asked the other party to help him engrave an S letter on the ring. After a busy time, the two put the ring they bought on their hands. Clark curiously observed the ruby on the ring and asked Zoo, is this a real gem? I don't know, but it shouldn't be valuable, otherwise it wouldn't be so cheap. I guess this meteorite ruby is not worth much. Clark, who felt it made sense, shrugged his shoulders and put the ruby ring on his hand. The moment the ring was put on, Clark suddenly felt an inexplicable chill invade his body. The blood-red spider silk-like existence was generated on the back of the hand, and then spread to the whole body along the blood vessels. Feeling the indescribable changes in his body, Clark looked at the ring on his finger, and the next second his eyes instantly turned red like a ruby. At the same time, Whitney was leading a group of friends to line up behind to buy rings. Seeing Clark standing in front, someone shouted at him impatiently, "Hey! Don't block the way, get out of the way." Clark, who heard the voice, not only did not walk away, but walked straight towards Whitney and others. Standing in front of a tall and strong guy, Clark asked him with a bad look, "What did you say just now?" "I said, get out of the way." The students who knew Clark's introverted and cowardly personality glared at Clark and repeated what he had just said. Bang! The next second, Clark stretched out his hand and pushed the other person. The tall and strong student who was pushed in the chest immediately fell to the ground uncontrollably and slid backwards along the ground. Finally, with a bang, he hit the metal locker heavily, making a dull sound. Witnessing the sudden scene in front of them, the crowd exclaimed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.